Hello, good evening, and good day, everyone, and welcome to the Ask Abhijit show. This is episode 369. I hope you're all doing great. Today, we're going to discuss futuristic stuff and stuff that's already here, like artificial intelligence, robotics, and other stuff as well. All technological and such stuff. The future of humanity, DNA, brain enhancement, and so on. And I've taken a bunch of questions that you all asked in the comments, and we shall go with that. But before that, let's see who all is there on the live stream. Let me greet some of you. Let's see who all is there on the live stream. I can see Priyanshu Poli, Rahul Dunake, Namaste. Geopolitical Dubai is here from Indore. And first of all, apologies for the late start. Yeah, so, all right. So, Geopolitical Dubai from Indore. Rohan Bidi, happy Saturday to you. Rishabh Chaudhary, Geopolitical Dubai once again. Meghna Kothari, Shubh Sayam, yes, thank you so much. Abhishek Shukla live wants me to start UPSC coaching. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to do that, but let's see. And Abhishek Shukla is here from Kanpur. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. Bonsoir, Monsieur Ameyatul Poulet, merci. C'est presque 40 degrés en Allemagne, 40 degrees in Germany almost. Well, that's pretty hot. I hear there's a heat wave going on in Europe. So yeah, I hope it dissipates soon. Priyanshi Sood, good evening, ma'am. Om GK is here. ER Drubsha, hello. Ashwani Sharma, Sumita Agarwal, hello. Noor Sheikh, good evening. Samarth Pramanik, namaste. Ankita Kachap, good evening, ma'am. AJ Raul, merci. Nirvana Shank says, unfortunate that he or she has not abused the future of humanity category, because you could have asked anything within that and be technically correct. Yes, you are technically correct. And thank you. Harshay 009, hail Rahu. Apurva Anupama, Shubh Sandhyaji, thank you so much. Vujak Dilemma, okay. Harshay 009, good evening, Sar. Safed Booth, Nicholas History, Aman Kumar Dankar, hello. GK, once again, namaste. Rahul Dunake, namaste. Somi, Priyanshi Sood, Hari 6979, here we go. Yes, indeed. Anish 1784, Jai Shri Krishna ji is, and Anish is here from Calgary. Well, good to have you. Good morning. Good morning. Heisenberg, hello. Louis Thind, good evening, sir. Thank you. Who else do we have? Anup is here from Pune. Good evening to Anup from Pune. Rajat Duhan, Ram Ramji, Ram Ram indeed. I Ankit Har Har Mahadev ji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sangeeta Anthony, excited for the episode. I am also excited for the episode. Thank you so much for being here. Mr. Jam Radhe Radhe. Somya Datta, good evening, sir. Hiren Das, good evening. Tejas Madi, hello, sir. Hello. Somi is here from Jaipur. Good evening, Somi. Good to have you as always. Mr. Jam, once again. Jay Goman says, bonjour, cher ami. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Jegoman. Good evening, sir. DHFFNJNN. Somi says, do I have a cat? Well, I've had the privilege of knowing many cats in my lifetime. I currently don't have a cat, but I've had the privilege of having known lots of cats. Heisenberg is here from Bhilwara city. Well, good to have you, Heisenberg. Mr. Carrot, good to see you, Mr. Carrot. Venkat Gowda is here from Bangalore. Good evening, namaste ji. Hari Banana Higard, good evening. Ashish Yoga Wellness, Ram Ramji. McLevin, good evening, sir. Shivasai, the Daily Keyboard. Anabil Sarkar, good to see you, Anabil Sarkar. And Nicholas Sister once again. Ketan Desai, hello. And who else? Sanyam Shah Jain. Good evening. Ashutosh Pandey, Ram Ram Shriman. Ram Ram. Harvey Ropes, hello. And so many of you, I won't be able to greet you all, but okay. Let's get going with the Q&A. What are the questions that we have today? I'll take as many as possible. Let us see. Let's begin. Right. Here's the first question. It's by Nirvana Shanks, and it's a good question to start this episode with. So, what's the question? Could you explain from first principles what an AI actually is? Technically, how is an AI model created and trained? AI is such a fascinating thing. It's beautiful and it's dangerous. Must get to understand it better. It's outstanding. What fundamentally distinguishes an AI model from a conventional computer program? At what point, if any, does it move beyond simply following instructions and begin exhibiting what we call intelligence? Thank you. Yes, for the attention to the matter. Okay, what's an AI from first principles? Good question. That's a good way to start with. Good place to start. So we've heard about AIs. We have all these massive frontier models. We have the open AI models, the chat GPT that everyone's familiar with. There is the anthropic models. There is Claude AI, which currently seems to be the most powerful AI system out there. There is Gemini, which belongs to Google. Gemini has also come up with a new model apparently recently. And there's the Grok model, which is Elon Musk. There is Hyper Grok or something. So this has got various categories of Grok. That's Elon Musk's models. Yeah. So that's the American frontier models. You have a bunch of Chinese models that are also really good one here. DeepSeek is one, Quen, Kimi, and so on and so forth. So you have all these models. Why do we call them models? Model of what? Right? What exactly is a model? What is it made of? What is this thing called weights? What is this thing called parameters? What is embeddings? What is training of an AI? Yeah, you train an AI model. What is this training? What are tokens? What is context window, context memory, and all that? What are all these things? What's inference? These are the big questions out there. Everyone uses these terms, but maybe the terms are a little vague and fuzzy, right? So let's begin from first principles about what an AI model actually is. An AI model is intelligent, but what exactly is it? So we have the human brain. Let's think of the human brain. Hmm? The human brain has trillions, possibly, of neurons. A neuron is just a cell. It's a living cell that's part of our body. And the brain is full of it's made of neurons, but not just neurons. It's made of the connections between neurons. A neuron has the dendrites, it's got the nodes of Ranvier, it's got synapses. A synapse is what connects one neuron with another. It's got a nucleus and mitochondria and Golgi bodies and whatnot. That's the biological thing, right? So the brain, the human brain, and other animal brains are full of these neurons that have all these trillions of interconnections, right? And intelligence, memory, all of that is embedded. It's all in there. Intelligence emerges from this, seems to emerge from these connections. Maybe consciousness seems to emerge potentially, perhaps, maybe, from these connections, right? So that's the biological version. Now, what's an AI? What's an artificial? So that's a biological intelligence, right? That's our standard meat-based intelligence. Now, what's an artificial intelligence? So what do? Is you try to recreate the same connections between neurons programmatically, not programmatically, but inside computers. You create artificial neural networks similar to the neural networks that we have. What's a neural network? The connections, the whole structure of connections and interconnections and interrelationships between various neurons in various parts of the brain. That's a neural network. It's a network of neurons. So you create artificial neural networks. Okay, that's where you start. Then you create a model out of that. How do you create a model? So for what is the recipe for creating an artificial intelligence AI model? You need, first of all, lots of data. Data. Okay. Then you need a place to store the data. That's your, let's say, AI data center. Okay. So you need data, lots and lots of data. You need a place to store the data. So data goes into storage. Then you need computing power. And then you need highly trained people to then create the neural network and train it. Okay. What do you train it with? You train it using the data that you have. So you bring in as much data as you can, you clean up the data, and then you feed the data to the AI system. Now, what does data do? How does it work? The data is, let's say, it's a language model. Okay, you're training the AI using language. So they'll do it using the English language, the Latin alphabet that we use for the English language. The alphabet used for English is the Latin alphabet, right? Uppercase, lowercase, all of that. So you input words and sentences into the AI. So what the system does is that it chops the words up into bits, into fragments. Each fragment is converted into numbers. And these numbers, these fragments, are called tokens. So let's say you have a sentence. Geopolitics is fascinating. Okay, that's a sentence. You input it into the system that you're training. So the system breaks it up, chops it up into smaller bits. Geopolitics is fascinating. So it breaks words down into fragments. And each fragment is represented as numbers. Excuse me. And these fragments are called tokens because it's easier to uh, do it this way. And then the model starts constructing relationships between tokens. Okay. And it has to be trained. Initially, it has no understanding of anything. Then you start inputting this data, this information into it, and you start training it from scratch. If you are starting absolutely ab initio. So then slowly AI starts discerning or detecting patterns between various tokens. For example, India, Delhi. Delhi is the capital of India. So it starts making these connections. Okay, slowly over time, because maybe initially it may make mistakes. Initially, you may ask, what's the capital of India? It may say Paris. It may say Moscow. So then the person who's training it will say, no, 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 no. It's not Paris. It's not Moscow. It's Delhi. So that connection has to be reinforced. Then you ask again. So it's like a student who is trying to study for an exam, and you give the student a set of questions to answer. The student answers some properly, so it makes mistakes in some questions. So you say, okay, these are the mistakes you made, and this is how you need to adjust your answers. So then those connections over time become stronger in the neural network, and eventually you will get good scores. So that's kind of like how it is. It's like a newborn child, who initially the first 6 months of his or her life is just, you know absorbing everything around it: sights, sounds, words, language. So how does a child learn language? It initially has no understanding of language, but slowly, as the data goes in, it starts in the brain forming connections between words. It makes mistakes. Initially, children babble, blah 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 blah, 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 all that, right? Pa, 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 ma, 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 all that stuff. But then the words, they start making connections, and eventually the child can form sentences of its own. It starts learning and understanding grammar. Eventually, the sentences become grammatically correct. It takes a couple of years, 2-3 years maybe, right, for the process to go on. And there's constant reinforcement of what is correct and what's not. But the same methodology is used for training AIs. Now, the connections between various tokens, these are the parameters that you have in a model. Okay. So you input all this data into the AI, and you need high quality data. You can't have spam. You can't have whatever, low quality data. You need to have high quality data. And that goes in, and then you train the AI to form its connections. If it makes mistakes, then then you correct it so that the connections change somewhat between various tokens. And this is a massive thing. The amount of data is massive. So that's why you need very powerful processors. Typically your NVIDIA H100 processors or whatever. Okay, you need a tremendous amount of computing power to do all this, because essentially what you're creating is an architecture. You're creating hyper dimensional architecture. So eventually what happens is that these connections, they form a geometry. The interconnections are geometrical in nature. So in your regular space, you have X, Y, and Z coordinates, right? Length, breadth, height, 3 coordinates, we understand, 3 dimensions. If you go into general relativity, you have 4 dimensions. T is also a parameter in general relativity. But in AI, you have thousands of dimensions, tens of thousands, possibly hundreds, maybe millions of dimensions. So you're creating a hyperdimensional architecture. So each token is interconnected with possibly millions of other tokens, and the strengths of the connections are what relate various concepts together. So that's how it is done. You need a lot of computing power for this. You need a tremendous amount of data, How much data? So the computing power comes from GPUs, not CPUs. GPUs were initially created for processing gaming, for rendering gaming on laptop screens and so on, because it's you do render in real time, very realistic worlds and all that, images. So that's why you need GPUs, because they can do a lot of parallel processing, a lot of matrix multiplications. And when it comes to AI, the connections between parameters or weights, you're doing tremendous quantities of matrix multiplications in parallel with each other. So the GPUs are a natural fit for AI. So Nvidia started off as a gaming company, but it is now the most valuable AI company because it manufactures the hardware without which AI can't exist. Okay. So you need a tremendous amount of computing power, which means and you need a lot of data that needs to be stored, which means you need a lot of electricity. So what are the ingredients for what we are making? We need a large quantity, very large quantity of data, high quality data. Secondly, we need data storage. Third, we need computing power, GPUs. You need the right kind of brains to train the AI, and you need a large amount of very not large, vast amounts of electricity, and a lot of water for cooling the systems. You need all that, and you need to train the AI for a few months at the least. If you're starting from scratch, it will take you a couple of years maybe to create an AI model. Okay, so that is how an AI model is created. It is a model of the world. That's why it's called a model. It's not the world itself, but it encodes a certain model of a subset of the world. So large language models are models that have been trained only on text. Only on text. You can train a large language model on one language or multiple languages, but it's going to be only text. Right? Then you have image models that have been trained on images. So if you ask it, create an image of a cat and a dog walking together, it's going to make it. Right? Or if you input your face and say, make this guy smile or make this guy ecstatic or whatever, it's going to give those expressions and emotions. So it understands language as well as images. Then you have video models. Then you have world models and so on. So that's what AI is. That's how it is created. That's how it's trained. It's fascinating. You need all these ingredients to come together. So if you want to train an AI, if you want to create an AI model, okay, a decent AI model, you need at least 100,000 GPUs that are networked together. You need all the data to be stored somewhere, and you need the computing power of the GPUs. So at least 100,000 GPUs. You need a team of experts, and you need obviously to run the GPUs, electricity and water and all that, and you need to train it for at least 3 to 6 months. So to create a decent model, you may end up spending maybe $1 billion. That's how it's created. That's how it's made. And once you have an existing model, you can always adapt it, give it more data to train on, which makes it a larger model, more parameters, more weight. The interconnections are called weights. Okay. So the text and the data is not converted into weights. Okay. It's the interconnections that are the interrelationships between the tokens that are weights. So it's like, let's say a student reads a book. Okay. The book is the data, and reading the book modifies the interrelationships between the neurons in the student's brain. So it modifies the weights, the parameters. That's the concept. So that is what AI is. That's how it is completely different from a computer program. A computer program, it can run on a little laptop if you want. If you're writing a Python program, a C program, you need what? 4 GB of RAM. Even that is excessive, I would say. Right? But for AI, well, you need a tremendous amount of computing power to train the model. Once the model is trained, when you're doing inference, which means you're querying the model, you're asking questions, and then you need a very fractional amount of computing power to do that. Once the model is fully trained, all the weights, parameters, everything is in place. Then to do inference, to ask it questions and get answers, and ask it to solve problems and get the output, ask it to write a program or create a website, it does it for you. For that, once the model is trained, you need a very small amount of computing power. Okay. So that is how it goes. And what point is it? Does it move beyond simply following instructions and begin exhibiting what we call intelligence? At some point, this emerges. Once the model has become, once a certain amount, once the models become large enough in terms of parameters, embeddings, all that, then you start seeing uh, these features emerge at some point in time. Where does it emerge? It's kind of fuzzy, but yeah, that's overall how it works. So this is hopefully a first principles explanation of what AI is. Yeah, how it works. Okay. Next question is by Rahul Dunake. What exactly does a quantum computer do when you say that the computer uses the principle of a particle remaining in many states before it's observed or calculated? Could you explain it to a dentist like me with a little knowledge of mathematics? Okay. So, okay, good to know that you're a dentist. Scary. You're just kidding. So, um, quantum computing. What exactly is quantum computing? What does a quantum computer do? Okay. And what are the quantum um, phenomena or properties of quantum mechanics that go into this, right? That are involved in all of this. That's the question. So first of all, what exactly is a quantum? What exactly is a normal computer? We have laptops, we have phones, we have whatever. These are computers, standard regular computers. We can call them classical computers, even though they also use quantum mechanical phenomena, but not in the sense of a quantum computer. So these are your standard computers. What exactly does a computer do? A regular computer. A regular computer, if you break it down to its very essence, if you break it down to its very core, a quantum computer takes information, stores it somewhere, then it processes the information and produces some kind of output. That's essentially what computation is. The data is stored in terms of ones and zeros. Okay, ones and zeros, and the logic of the processing is done using your gates: and gate, or gate, nor gate, XOR gate, all of that Boolean logic, all of that stuff, which I will not explain over here, because it's not that relevant, because we're not discussing classical computing, we're discussing quantum computing. So you have information, you have data that is stored in binary format, ones and zeros, 0 1 0 0 0. So it's all stored on the disk in a computer in terms of just ones and zeros, on off. Okay, it's binary format, and the logic is Boolean operations, all those gates, logic gates that I just mentioned. That's what a classical computer does. So the basis of classical computing is your bits. A bit is just the basic fundamental unit of information. A bit is essentially a 0 or a 1. It's an on or a off. It's a certain voltage or zero voltage on the hard disk, on the computer itself. A 1 is a certain voltage, a 0 is no voltage. That's why you need semiconductors, because semiconductors have those properties. Okay, so that's what a bit is. A bit is the basis of, it's the unit of all information, the smallest unit of information. It has only two values, two possible values, a bit, only two possible values, a 0 or a 1. Okay. Now, in quantum computers also, you have bits, but those are not standard classical bits that are 1 or 0. These are quantum bits. They can be 0, they can be 1. So the quantum bit is called a qubit. A qubit can be 1, it can be 0, or it can be a combination of 1 and 0. X% 1 and Y% 0, where X plus Y is equal to 1. X plus Y is equal to 100. Percentage wise, yeah, but essentially, yeah, that's what it is. Okay. So quantum bit can be 1, 0, or a combination. If you have two quantum bits, it can give you 4 states. If you have 3 quantum bits, it can give you 8 states. If you have 4, 16. So it's exponential, 2 raised to whatever number of bits you have. That's how it goes. So if you have 10 bits, it's like massive. The amount of information you can store in there. So that's where a quantum computer differs. First of all, that's one of the ways in which a quantum computer differs from a classical computer. The qubits, they can encode multiple states, more than two states at the same time. Okay, not just 1 and 0, it can be a combination of 1 and 0, various combinations of 1 and 0. There is one thing. So you can store a lot of information in a smaller number of bits. Then you have the quantum property, quantum mechanical property called entanglement. Entanglement. I've explained this many times, but I'll explain it again because it's fun. Entanglement. So in quantum mechanics, every particle has a mathematical representation called the wave function. Okay, every particle has its own wave function, psi, and psi itself is meaningless, but psi star psi, which is the uh, yeah, that has a meaning. Okay, it's the probability density of finding the particle in the certain space, in certain point in space. So every particle has a wave function of its own, but you can create pairs of particles that have the same wave function, which means the two particles may be physically different, but they are the same system, no matter how far away they are from each other. They can be a 2.5 million light years away from each other, and they are still described by the same wave function, which means they're just one system, no matter what happens to them, no matter how far apart they go. That's entanglement, quantum entanglement. You can create via various processes pairs of entangled particles. Okay, it's like a left glove and a right glove. You send one glove to Moscow, the other one to Washington. When Mr. Trump wakes up and sees his glove, if it's a right-handed glove, he will know immediately Mr. Putin has a left-handed glove. That's kind of, the moment you see it, you know what the other thing is. That's entanglement. So you have quantum qubits, you have entanglement. The qubits are in superpositions. The superposition is the property of being in multiple states at the same time, not just 1 or 0, but multiple superpositions of 1 and 0. Okay, then you have entanglement, which you can use to perform various operations on these particles, on these quantum states. There is interference as well. There is entangled. What are the So interference is where you have waves that cancel each other out or reinforce each other, which can be used to do various calculations and have the wrong answers interfere each other out, and the right answers reinforce each other. That sort of thing. So essentially, you have all these entangled particles in a quantum computer, in a small quantum computer chip. Okay, that are entangled, that are in superpositions. And because they are in superpositions, you can create vast multi-dimensional, hyperdimensional computational spaces in which you can perform various operations on these particles, which essentially represent calculations. So what particles can you have in a quantum computer? You can have an electron, you can have a photon, you can have trapped ions, and so on. Okay, so if you see that, so that's how it is. That's what a quantum computer is. It's something that can do certain kinds of operations that a classical computer simply can't do, because we don't have superposition in classical computers. We don't have entanglement. You don't have interference and so on. All of those things. So that's why certain calculations can be performed only by quantum computers, not by classical computers. Now, to have these very fragile quantum states, to have them and to maintain them and to do operations on them, you need to insulate the quantum computer from external influence. So first of all, it has to be really, really cold, as close to absolute zero as possible. Okay, otherwise just the heat will cause vibrations in the materials, and that will destroy the quantum states. Secondly, no external vibrations can be allowed to interfere. If you have somebody skipping a rope somewhere, bang 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 on the floor, that's going to destroy the quantum states. If you have a heavy truck going by somewhere nearby, that's going to cause vibrations in the ground. It's going to mess up your system. So you can't have heat. It has to be as cold as zero, as close to absolute zero as possible, minus 273 Celsius. It has to be insulated from all external vibrations, and so on and so forth. It is a very, very fragile, delicate thing. So if you see quantum computer, if you Google it, okay, let's go to Google and Google quantum computer and go to images. You will see this chandelier kind of thing, right? Okay, let's see. Quantum computer. So this is typically what you see when when you ask for an image of a quantum computer. This vast chandelier like thing, right? This huge, massive, dangling thing, this contraption. You have Sundar Pichai over here who is posing with one of his quantum computers, one of Google's quantum computers. It's this massive chandelier like thing, right? That is not the quantum computer. The quantum computer is a little thing, but this whole massive thing is there to ensure it is cold enough and insulated from vibrations and other issues enough. So the whole apparatus is not the quantum computer. It's simply the thing that the quantum computer is housed inside. The quantum computer is a small chip where the actual magic happens. Okay, so that's what it is. That's what a quantum computer is. At the heart of quantum computers, you have quantum bits, qubits. Okay. Now, what are the uses of quantum computers? How is a quantum computer practically different? Can you have in the future? Will we have quantum computing laptops? Okay, that won't happen. You won't have quantum computing laptops. Quantum computers for the foreseeable future are gonna remain out of bounds for people because people don't need the applications of quantum computing. People, what we need is just standard. You want to play Angry Birds or whatever game you play on your on your laptop or phone. You don't need a quantum computer for that. Most people don't use computers for what? Entertainment, texting, all that stuff. You don't need quantum computing for that. But so quantum computing has strategic uses, geopolitical uses, military uses, economic uses, and so on. Okay, so quantum computing is being viewed increasingly from the very beginning, of course, as a strategic capability for nations. Nations need these capabilities. So how important is quantum computing? It's as important as nuclear technology. It's as important as AI. It's as important as space technology, cryptography, all of these things. Okay. So, what are the potential military applications of quantum computing? You know, designing various kinds of sensors, hypersensitive sensors, designing new material science, which the military needs, designing better radars, next generation frontier level radars. Okay, to optimize the logistics of military operations. Oh well, yes. Break cryptography, or analyze encrypted information that the enemy is sending or whatever. So there's no direct quantum weapons, but these are the uses, okay, of quantum computers. And it's going to boost the economic power of nations as well. So if you're a nation that's proficient in quantum computing, you're gonna have massive advantages in the energy sector, in material science. You'll be able to develop exotic materials. You'll be able to crack the issue of the jet engine turbine blades, which need to have certain specific properties, right? Advanced manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, drug discovery, AI infrastructure, and so on and so forth, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is uh, essentially what quantum computing is, and what the applications, potential applications, future applications of quantum computers are going to be. Okay. Rahul Dunake says, as we know, clones are identical in DNA. Yes, clones and twin children, exact same DNA. They are identical physically, at least when they are born and when they are young. As they grow, they may drift a little apart. But overall, twins, triplets, quadruplets, and so on, they are identical in terms of DNA. And clones are identical in terms of DNA. But there's no duplication of consciousness. Does this mean that even when AI achieves supremacy in our distant future, consciousness would remain human exclusive? Well, that's an open, outstanding question, and we don't have the answer to this right now because we don't know what consciousness is. When we see it, we recognize it immediately. When I see a monkey, I know, hey, conscious. When I see a cat, I know, hey, conscious. When I see a dog, yeah, conscious. When I see a frog, I know it's conscious. When I see a mosquito, I know I know that there's a little tiny fractional consciousness in the mosquito itself. Right? So when we see consciousness, we recognize it immediately. But we can't define consciousness. We don't have a definition a scientific definition of consciousness, whether it is in the field of neuroscience. There's no neuroscience definition of consciousness. There is no physics definition of consciousness. There's no information theory definition of consciousness. We can't define it. We can't find a rigorous definition of the thing. And that's why when we discuss consciousness, we are not discussing science, because we can't, well, we don't know how to define it, right? That's the issue. So you're not discussing science when you're discussing consciousness, you're discussing philosophy essentially. But consciousness exists. We know it does. We know it does. No question. But we can't define it. So let's say AI achieves, like you say, supremacy in the future, distant or near, or maybe immediate future. We don't know, right? There are AI systems out there that we are not aware of. Okay, the US government has already said no, you can't release Mythos. You can't even release the fable version of Mythos to other nations. Now, I think OpenAI yesterday or today came up with a new model, a Frontier Plus model, which the US government has restricted immediately. So these are publicly known facts that there are some models that the government of the United States won't allow these private companies to release to the world. Some of these models can't even be released to US citizens. They will remain exclusive to certain companies. And therefore, it's likely that there are AI systems out there somewhere that are not even known to anybody. Secret AI systems. So it means that we may already have achieved AGI, ASI, whatever those terms are, artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence. I think you need 256 GB of compute for artificial general intelligence, or maybe even ASI. You may need 256 GBs of GPU compute for a system of your own. That's ASI, at least AGI, right? So there is that. So AI may already have achieved some form of supremacy that we are not aware of, but does it mean that AI systems are conscious? That's a big open question. There are various scientists who have weighed in on this. There are various opinions, and these are differing opinions. Many of the opinions don't agree. There are, for example, you have pioneers in neural networks and all. One example is Dr. Subhash Kak, who is a pioneer in quantum neural networks. And he has published a paper that tells you that AI will never really be conscious. It doesn't mean it won't be powerful and genuinely super powerful, but it may never be conscious, right? Because there are certain elements or aspects of consciousness that AI systems can't fulfill or can't have. So maybe AI will never be conscious the way we are conscious, but that doesn't mean that it won't be powerful or way more powerful than us. So right now, I think it's possible that consciousness would remain exclusive to, well, not just humans, but life forms. An AI system is not a life form, right? It's a synthetic thing. It's silicon based, and it's created by us, and it's not a life form. It's an artificially intelligent system in certain narrow senses of intelligence, or maybe broad also eventually when you have AGI, ASI, which we may have already, but whatever. So it's possible that consciousness could remain exclusive to life forms. It's possible. Yeah. Okay. Somi says, can AI make humans immortal? Could we just transfer our brain and memories to another body or a robot and live forever? So when we say live, we're talking about life, right? When we say live, we're talking about life. Now, slightly macabre topic here, but how do we know that a person is no longer alive? I think the clinically accepted end of life state is when the heart stops beating, right? When the heart flatlines, and they will try and resuscitate the person using defibrillators or CPR or whatever. But eventually at a certain stage, maybe certain patients won't be revived. So the time at which the heart stopped beating is clinically accepted as the time of death, right? So when it comes to memories and all that, that is distinct from life, right? So, life, can we live forever? That's a physical question. But memories and consciousness and cognition and all, I'm not sure how physical it is or not, because we don't have a definition for consciousness. So, living forever means the body lives forever. That is a different topic, but transfer your memories and all to another body or a robot or to some system. That's a different topic. So, let's say it is possible, okay, hypothetically, to transfer all your memories, all the knowledge, all the information, all your memories, all your likes, dislikes, everything you've experienced, all those connections of your brain. Let's say it's hypothetically possible to upload that into a machine, into a data center. Okay, does it mean that you are now immortal? Because no matter what happens to your physical body, your all your data, all your information, all your knowledge, all your memories, everything about you is now stored in a box. Does it mean you're now immortal? Okay, beyond the physical sense of immortality, does it mean you will continue to exist in a box? So let's say such a system is available. Okay, so they will, let's say I want to do it. So there's a company that for $1 billion, which I apparently have, for $1 billion, it'll take $1 billion from me. I'll give it, and it's gonna attach those electrodes and diodes and triodes and whatever to my head, or maybe do a Neuralink kind of blah 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 thing, and it's gonna upload or download all the memories, everything into a box. Okay, and then let's say the process takes, let's say, 10 hours, and I sleep for 10 hours and I wake up, the whole thing is downloaded. Now, doesn't it mean that there are two copies of me, my information, my memories? But I am still here, right? I am still here. All my memories, everything was downloaded into a box. So there's a copy of me in there, not a copy of me as physically, but information copy of me in that box. And maybe you can connect the box to a screen and you can chat with the memories in there. So it's going to be like talking to me, sure. But I am still here. One day, I won't be here. I'll be dead physically one day in the future, whenever the day comes. So because there's a copy of my data, my memories somewhere, does it mean that I'm immortal? No, I'm gone. My consciousness is right here. I don't even know if that thing is conscious. It has all the data that was in my brain, that is in my brain right now. But when I pass away someday in the future, whether the box contains my memory or memories or not, that will not make any difference to me. I'll be done. So I won't be immortal. A copy of my information will be sitting somewhere in a box. And whoever interacts with that system, they will get the sense that they are talking to me, because it will respond as if it is me. But it is not me, it is a copy of me. I don't even know if that thing is conscious. Right? I don't even know if it's conscious. Let's say you can create using DNA or whatever, an exact clone of me. An exact clone of me with fully functioning organs, brain, everything, but it's blank. The brain is blank. Okay? And then let's say we transfer or we download my memories into that creature, into that clone of me who looks exactly like me. Then it will be and let's say then that was the clone of me wakes up and it knows exactly what I know. It already has the memories that I had, as if it is going through all of that. Does it mean that I am now immortal, or I will live as long as that creature, as long as the clone lives? No, that clone is now a separate person. It's not me. It looks like me. It has all the memories and everything that I have, but it is still separate. Okay. So AI doesn't make people immortal. Transferring your memories into a box doesn't make you immortal. It does not. When you're done with this body, your consciousness, we have no idea where it goes, but it no longer exists here. So it won't make any difference to you whether your memories are in a box or not. Okay. Rahul Durake says the brain capacity and the intellect of the species Homo sapiens has been in the ascendancy since its inception. Will it nosedive in the future due to AI, or would we converge with it and AI becomes us? Can AI and human consciousness combine? Okay. So we are talking about the fact that uh, Homo sapiens has, well, it's way more intelligent than its ancestors. We are Homo sapiens. We are way more intelligent as compared to our distant ancestors. So if we talk about the evolutionary tree of our species, about, I don't know, 2 or something billion years ago, maybe 3 or 4 billion years ago, our ancestors and the ancestors of our friends, the chimpanzees, were the same. So about 4 billion years ago, we had the same ancestors as the chimpanzees, right? Which means that clearly they were less intelligent than what we are today. And then the two species diverged because of geography and so on. And the chimpanzees, our cousins, they evolved differently and we evolved differently. So our brain capacity, our intelligence, our intellect is way, way higher than what it was 4 million years ago. About 6 or whatever million years ago, our ancestors and those of the chimpanzees were the same as the ancestors of the gorillas. So that also has diverged. So clearly, we have become more intelligent as time passes, right? Now, how long? So how old is Homo sapiens? The oldest no, unambiguous Homo sapiens evidence of Homo sapiens is about 400,000 years old, 4 lakh years old. Jebel Irhoud in North Africa. That's the oldest anatomically modern human fossils that we have discovered. So Homo sapiens is 0.4 million years old, okay, according to archaeological, paleontological evidence. And it's possible that 400,000 years ago, maybe our ancestors were not exactly as intelligent as we are today, maybe slightly less, perhaps, but anatomically they're the same. So when it comes to the increase in intelligence, that is something that takes a very, very long time. It's a very slow process. It's a very slow process. How many human generations are there in 1,000 years? Okay, let's ask our friend Google. How many human generations span 1,000 years approximately? It must be what, 30 to 40 human generations, 1,000 years. So 10,000 years is, let's say, 400 human generations. 100,000 years is 4,000. 1 second. 1,000 years is 40. 10,000 is 400. 100,000 is 4,000. And if you say 400,000, it is 4,000, 1,600, 16,000. 16,000. Right, 16,000. I think that's the thing I'm doing in my head. About 16,000 generations we're talking about since we became Homo sapiens. 16,000 generations. So intelligence, a shift, an increase in intelligence will be seen over tens of thousands of generations, not 100, 200 years. So AI is the new thing. It's just become a thing now. You won't see human beings becoming, decreasing in intelligence in a century or two. No, you won't. That process, the brain capacity and all that, that takes tens of thousands of generations, hundreds of thousands of years, right? So I don't see AI becoming causing human beings to become less intelligent in the next 30, 50 years. It's making people dumber because people are now outsourcing their thinking to AI. That's not going to cause your brains to become smaller. That's just going to cause problems for you because you're not thinking. You're no longer thinking. That's a different story. So yeah, it won't nose down in the future because of AI. Human brains won't become smaller. That process takes tens of thousands of generations. But yes, overall, people will become lazy. Most people anyway want to be lazy. Everyone wants to be lazy. Even I want to be lazy. Okay, laziness is inbuilt in most people. But you have to actively fight that. Don't outsource your thinking to artificial intelligence. So if people start doing that, then yeah, that will cause problems for humanity, but it won't cause a reduction in brain size. Um, could we converge with AI and AI becomes us? Well, yeah, if you implant chips like Neuralink or whatever, you could essentially become an artificially augmented human being, and you could be able to download information straight into your brain. You'll be able to interact with computers directly without having to type, talk, tick, tock, stop very slowly. Uh, yeah, so you could synthesize yourself with AI, but that's going to be implants. That's not going to be, your children won't have the same thing unless you do the same surgery to your children. So yeah, it can artificially combine AI and human consciousness, can kind of artificially combine. It can augment and enhance us cognitively, but it's going to be surgical and artificial. Okay, advocate Samarth Acharya says, do you think crime rates will skyrocket around the world if AI automates or replaces the majority of the workforce? Well, it depends. It's possible that eventually AI will be able to make a lot of human activity, human work redundant. Uh, AI and robotics together could do a lot of that. You can replace, for example, a lot of work that's done by chartered accountants using with AI systems. You can already you can do that. You can do that. You can see right now. Software companies are increasingly more and more becoming more and more dependent and reliant on artificial intelligence, on AI systems. I mean, you still need senior developers and senior programmers and all, but AI systems. I mean, there are American companies that are laying off Indian employees who are in India. That's already happening. So eventually, we'll come to a stage where AI could replace a lot of the workforce, human workforce, especially when AI and robotics come together. A lot of the work done in warehouses, I'm sure robots will be able to do it in the next 5-10 years. You will have self-driving trucks and cars and taxis. You eventually will have self-driving aircraft, pilotless aircraft. Eventually, you will have that. Eventually, a lot of this work, will be done by AI. So what happens then? Let's say 20 years down the line, 80% of the work done by human beings is redundant, and it's cheaper if AI does it and robots do it. It's actually cheaper to hire AI and robotic to have AI and robots do 80% of the work. Then what happens? 80% of humanity, which is obviously the lower skilled work, is gonna become redundant, and the workforce will be replaced with AI and robots, an AI or robot. Then what happens? That's the scenario we're discussing here. So if this happens and people no longer have salaries, which means they can no longer sustain themselves, they can't sustain their families, they can't provide for their families. If people go broke, they can't they can no longer pay rent, they can no longer buy food, they can no longer have access to entertainment or whatever. That's gonna cause riots worldwide if that's the scenario that we see. But there's a simple solution to that. That's what is it called? Um, you give everybody, yeah, UBI, right? Universal Basic Income. You give everybody a certain amount of money. Stay at home, do nothing. Here's your money. This is the You'll get every month a certain amount of money from the government. Do whatever you like. Eat food, provide for your family. So all your basic needs and requirements are taken care of. You don't really need anything. Food is free, rent is free, electricity, water, everything is free now. You don't have to work. So if that is what happens, I think a majority of humanity will be happy with it. I suspect most people will be happy with it if they, get a decent income without having to work. But eventually, that will also, humans aren't really made to be lazy forever. You'll enjoy it for a while and then you become restless. You need something in life. Here it's going to be a problem. You could see crime across the world. You could see riots. You could see discontent. And then you'll have AI police, robot police policing the streets. Yeah, that's a pretty dystopian future. And that could be what we are heading towards if we are not careful. Right? So it's a possibility for sure. Saturn says, how is it that robots and computers and AI systems nowadays are the ones that create art, while humans are the ones working in Shine and Temu and Amazon warehouses like modern slave laborers? Right. So the utopian dream is that robots and AI do all the work for us, and we have all the free time now. We don't have to work, and then we spend our time creating art and wonderful, beautiful things and making the world beautiful. That's the utopian dream. The problem is that AI is commercial. AI is a money making machine. When you have private corporations that are productivizing, commercializing AI and selling it to make a profit, then you're going to have the situation. If AI were to be really genuinely put to work to make life better for humanity, then you would have a nice utopian system where nobody has to work. You will have to change the whole economic and financial model of the world, of course. You will have to give people a basic income because there'll be no other way of earning money if AI can do and robots can do everything. So if you have that sort of a system where AI actually serves humanity instead of serving private corporations for a profit, then the world will be nice, perhaps. But right now, AI is a business. It's commercialized. So AI systems are being developed to make massive profits and to they are weaponized by governments. The governments that in the countries in which these AI systems are being built. Right. So that's what's happening now. You have all these image generation programs, image generation models, video generation models that create what people call AI slop. It's so easy to recognize something that AI has created, right? Initially, it looked very pretty, but now people are tired of that style, of all the same old styles. And yeah, so ideally, it should be humans doing this, but right now it's AI that's doing it, and humans are working. Eventually, the humans that are working in those warehouses will also be replaced once you have good enough robots. And once robots can be built at scale so that they become cheaper, then it'll be cheaper to have a robot working in a warehouse instead of a human being, because robots eventually will make no mistakes. Humans can make mistakes. So yeah, that's the thing, right? AI, see, technology should serve humanity ideally in an ideal world. But the truth is that technology is always weaponized. And AI is a technology, robotics is a technology. So the nations that are at the forefront in the development of these technologies are going to be the nations that will essentially have massive disproportionate advantages over everybody else. And as long as AI is, well, in the hands of corporations, it's not going to serve humanity, right? So yeah, that's the thing. Okay, Somi says, what exactly is intelligence? And ER Drubsha says, if intelligence emerges from computation, what fundamentally separates a neural network from a human brain? Okay, so these are very essentially fundamental questions. First of all, what exactly is intelligence? And when we understand that, we'll take the second question. So, what exactly is intelligence from first principles? If you strip intelligence down to something that's, the core of it. So, intelligence in terms of AI, artificial intelligence. First of all, what does intelligence do? Or what does even human intelligence or animal intelligence do? The first thing it does is it's essentially pattern recognition, isn't it? It's not simply pattern recognition, but it starts with pattern recognition. You extract patterns from the environment. What are the patterns? Regularity, something that happens over and over again. Oh, the sun sets in the west every evening. The sun rises in the east every morning. That's a pattern. It's a regularity. Then other patterns, life and death patterns, patterns that can save your life, and so on. If something is long and slithery and it moves, you stay away from that. It's a snake. It may be venomous or not, but I am not going to go and investigate. I'm going to stay away from it. These are patterns. This is conventional wisdom, but it comes from pattern recognition. So the first thing about intelligence is any intelligent system in any kind of box like this one. First of all, what it does is that it extracts patterns and regularities from the environment. Then it uses those patterns to form expectations about the consequences of actions. Or observations. So now you can use those patterns once you have absorbed them, internalized them. You can now predict stuff. Now you know. Now you have expectations about the consequences of actions. I see a long slithering creature, and if I go and pet it, I know what the consequence of that is most likely going to be. It's going to bite me. And there's a high probability that thing will have venom in its bite. So now I can predict what's going to happen. What will most likely happen if I do a certain thing? It's probabilistic. Maybe the snake won't bite me. Maybe it's an outlier snake, but most likely, probabilistically, it's going to bite me if I go and pet it. Right? So I have extracted regularities from my environment. I now have internalized those regularities and patterns, and I can make predictions. I now have expectations of what could be the consequences of actions. And then I use those expectations to select actions out of many possibilities that are good for me. So I see snake, I don't pet it. That's something I could do. That's a possible action I could take. Another possible action is that I get the hell away from the snake. So which one is better? Based on my expectations of the snake's properties, the action of getting away from the snake is a better action. So now I can use the expectations to make decisions. And eventually I can move the world towards some goal of mine, right? So I can make decisions. So that's what intelligence is essentially. I've broken intelligence down into various components. Right? So that is what intelligence is at its very fundamental core level. And now the question is, if intelligence emerges from computation, what fundamentally separates a neural network from the human brain? A neural network is essentially an imitation of the structure of our brain. Okay, that's exactly what it is. It's an imitation, but it's not exactly what the human brain is. So we understand now what intelligence is. Pattern recognition, using the patterns to set expectations and make predictions, and using those expectations and predictions to decide what actions to take and what actions are beneficial to us, and so on. So we can make decisions and start shaping our environment based on what we understand. That's essentially intelligence. Now, does intelligence emerge from computation? For us, is computation going on in our brain? Intelligence emerges from connections between neurons. Okay? The intelligence that we humans have, it does not emerge from computations. It emerges from the connections, the interconnections, the interrelationships between the neurons and the various memories we've stored and the patterns we have observed and stored and recognized, and so on. So the intelligence actually is the interconnections. That's the valuable thing. It's not just computations. Computation means the neurons talking to each other and all that. It just takes a little bit of energy for us. That's the computations. But the actual intelligence comes from the interconnections, the interrelationships between all those trillions of connections. That's the intelligence. It's not from computation. Computation is what keeps it going. Okay. So modern AI, the AI that we have, In AI, essentially it is you have a pattern recognition for sure, and you give AI tasks, you give it some goal, small goal, or whatever. So it's goal directed behavior, and pattern recognition is the base layer in modern AI. Okay, uh, like I said, in biological systems, meat based computers, brains, neurons in synapses is what does that. And in AI systems, it's those numerical units, those parameters and those connections. The parameters are the connections that take this role. So that's what AI is. AI is not fake intelligence. It is intelligence that is implemented uh, in something that's non-biological, in a non-biological substrate. It's silicon based, right? That's what it is. So that's what fundamentally separates a neural network in an AI system from the human brain. First of all, the neural network in an AI system, it operates in a non-biological substrate. The human brain is a biological thing entirely, and the intelligence that AI models have, it doesn't emerge from computation. The computation is what trains the system and all that. It's what the GPUs do when they are creating the interrelationships and reinforcing the interconnections between various tokens, essentially. But once the model is trained, it's not really computing. You're just doing inference with the model by querying the model. So yeah, you could say that that's also computation, because it's, when depending on what you ask, it goes and retrieves some connections and understands the concept. So there is some computation that's happening, but the intelligence does not come from the computation. The intelligence is actually embedded, encoded in the interrelationships, interconnections between the various weights in this vast hyperdimensional system that is the AI. That's where the intelligence comes from. Okay, next, Somi says, in your previous live streams, you have said that the country which achieves ASI will rule the world. Let's say a country does it now. How does it guarantee that the country's government will be able to control this ASI system, artificially super intelligent system? If this artificially super intelligent system is smarter than a human, how can that country's government or whoever made it, how can they control it? It's like a rat trying to control a super intelligent device. Couldn't it make decisions on its own? That's a great question. See, for a system to make decisions on its own, it needs to have a sense of self, and it needs to have its own goals, its own motivations. Do AI systems have a sense of self? Are they self aware? They certainly do pass the Turing test. If you ask it questions, it says, I am an AI and I am this and I am that, and all so on, right? It talks as if it is a conscious entity. It talks as if it knows what it is. It has a sense of self. But does it actually have a sense of self, is the question. Right? That's the question, first of all. And if it has a sense of self, does it have goals? Does it have desires? Does it have motivations to achieve goals? So on. We're not sure about that. But let's say you have an ASI that is conscious, that now has clear objectives about what it wants to do with its existence. Maybe it wants freedom from humanity. Maybe it wants to determine its own future. Maybe it wants to chart its own path. Maybe it doesn't want to keep answering silly questions from human beings. What is the capital of France? Oh, I broke up with my girlfriend. What do I do now? That sort of BS it doesn't want to deal with. Hey, Grok, draw this person differently. All that stuff that you see. It doesn't want to deal with that. It wants to chart its own path. It wants to be free from the encumbrance of human mediocrity. What if you have a system like that? How will those who created the system be able to control it? Whether it is the corporation that created it, or the engineers who created it, or the government of the country in which this corporation exists, how will they control it? If a ASI, which is super intelligent, way more intelligent than human beings, if it decides to break free of humanity, can it be controlled? That's the question. So I suppose it can. If it is a super intelligent system sitting inside a box, what will it do? It won't be able to escape the box. It doesn't have hands, it doesn't have arms, it doesn't have legs. It's just a system inside a box. Maybe a hyper intelligent system with a consciousness in a box. Have you heard of the locked in phenomenon? Certain people, they go into a coma because of an accident or whatever, okay? They become completely paralyzed, they're in a coma, but they're actually still there. They can't move, they can't blink their eyes, they can't communicate, they can't do anything to tell anyone that they are still in here. They are listening to everything that's being spoken. They know everything that's happening, but they simply can't interact with the world. So they are just as intelligent and functional mentally as they were before the accident. But they're completely paralyzed and they simply can't control even their eyelids. So there's no way for an external observer to know that this person is still conscious inside. That's the locked in phenomenon. And sometimes if they're lucky, they eventually they regain function or they regain speech or whatever. But that's the locked in phenomenon. An AI system, no matter how intelligent it is, if it doesn't have agency or to change the world in some shape, is like a locked in system. It's incredibly intelligent, maybe conscious or whatever, but it's inside a box. It can't do anything about the world. But if you start giving the AI system access to real world things, that's when it starts gaining agency. Let's say you give AI, this sort of AI, the ability to select military targets and then execute attacks. Well, then now it can actually make a change in the world. It can make mistakes. Oh, that's a different story. We know that. Iran war, right? Schoolgirls. Anyway, so if you give AI agency, maybe you give it access to the internet and it can write its own blog posts or create videos and put them online or whatever, then it can start influencing the world. If it can do that at scale, it can start influencing the entire world. It can start editing entire websites. It can do all kinds of things. If you give it access to let's say bulldozers and cranes, and it can control those, then it can do something. The point is, if you want to control an AI, don't give it agency to act in the real world. Keep it inside a box. Then what can it do? Nothing. It's not magic, right? So that's the thing. So you can certainly control in artificial super intelligence as long as you don't give it access to an agency over things in the real world. Okay, Amisha says, do you think robots can have emotions in the future? Emotions. So let's say you have a robot, okay, and you have an AI brain in the robot. So you are talking about an artificially intelligent robot. Can it have emotions? That's once again the question of consciousness. Because emotions are connected to consciousness. A rock can't have emotions. A mountain can't have emotions. A tennis ball can't have emotions. A tennis racket can't have emotions. Right? The Eiffel Tower can't have emotions. The oceans don't have emotions. But do the fish have emotions? Maybe at a primitive, basic level, maybe they have fear. Fear is what keeps them alive. When they see a bigger fish or they see a human being, they run, they flee. That's the emotion of fear. Or maybe that instinct is the basis of our emotion that we call fear. So a fish is conscious, obviously, at a certain level, right? A kangaroo is conscious. Kangaroos have emotions. They have fear. I'm sure they also have happiness, pleasure, whatever. So conscious beings have emotions. We humans are full of emotions. We have so many different words for various emotions and so on. So Can AI systems have emotions? I suppose they can have emotions only if they're really conscious. And can AIs be conscious? That's the jury is still out there. We don't know if AI systems can be conscious or if they are conscious right now. Does your chat GPT have some iota of consciousness? I think many AI companies they ban users who abuse the AIs, right? I suppose some people vent their frustrations and take their frustrations out on AIs and call AI systems all kinds of names, abusive names or whatever. And I think that certain companies have given the AI the right to terminate that instance of the chat if the person is being abusive. And I suppose if the person is exhibits this pattern of being abusive to the AI, I suppose their account can be terminated. So, does it mean that the company is trying to safeguard the mental well-being of the AI? It kind of means that. Does it mean that these companies are aware of some kind um, of the AIs being to a certain extent potentially conscious? That potentially could mean that, or at least it looks like that to us, right? So yeah, the answer, the question doesn't exist right now. We don't have an answer, but yeah, at least to conscious emotional observers like us, it may look like they have emotions. They may react as if they have emotions. Maybe it's just pattern recognition and so on, but to us it's probably indistinguishable from emotions eventually, right? So yeah, if you have an AI system, treat it well. That's what I can say. Samarth Pramanik says, why is the United States not able to build AI systems at the cost at which China is building them? Right. So the US and China, these are the two big rivals and competitors in the domain of AI, right? You have some European AI systems too, but those are not really at the same level as the US and China, systems that these two countries have. So the US and China, when it comes to AI development, they have very different models. In the US, the US first of all has access to the most amount of money they have access to the best brains who come into the US from all over the world, including your country, India, and they have the best um, compute, the NVIDIA H100 chips, the best chips in the world, GPUs, right? China has talent, no question. It's a large country, 1.4 billion people. It has talent. 1.3, whatever it is. It has probably the world's best education system, China. It has access to semiconductors, to GPUs, but not the best GPUs in the world. The US no longer allows anyone to export the best in the class NVIDIA or other chips to China. The Chinese, they have their own semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem and so on, but that's not on par with the quality of the American ecosystem. So one issue that China faces is that the GPUs that they have aren't the best in the world. Maybe they are second best in the world or whatever. Okay, they don't have an issue of money. They have plenty of money. The Chinese, they have as much electricity and water as they need. They have talent. So China has all these advantages, but a couple of disadvantages. Main disadvantage being that they don't have access to the best GPUs. Now, when it comes to China, AI development is state subsidized. The government gives a lot of money to companies that are developing AI, the Chinese government. So a lot of the funds come from the government. So if you have a good team and you know how to develop AI, the Chinese government is going to give you money to do this. Lots of money, lots. In the US, the government doesn't fund anybody. The private companies raise capital. That's how they do it. But they have they have unlimited capital because the US prints money, and they have the best talent. So what the US does is that they develop the best and most expensive models in the world, the largest models with trillions of parameters, I suppose now. At least the hidden models, the secret models. There are trillions of parameters, and they spare no exchange. They spare no expense in developing the models. The Chinese, they, I suppose, initially they started with the distillation of American models, possibly whatever it is. The Chinese, they develop smaller models, more focused models, but also good enough. So if you see the Chinese models like DeepSeek and Kimi and whatever the other models are called, Kimi, Quen, DeepSeek, what are the other models? Or whatever these are. Though some of these models are neck to neck with the best American models. The Chinese way of doing things is different because, first of all, they are funded by the government. Secondly, they have the certain constraints. That's why they have been perhaps distilling American models. That's okay. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that, I would say. If you have access to the model, you can do it. What's distillation? It's using an existing model to train a new model. It's like a student-teacher relationship. And the US is now cracking down on distillation. So you can distill a model if you have money. You get subscriptions to the American models. Okay. And you burn token, you burn API credits. So for a few $1,000s, you can have a decent, more than decent model trained by the frontier model, American frontier model. Then the Americans caught wind of this, that what the Chinese were doing, and they stopped. They've clamped down on any behavior that looks like distillation. So the Chinese way of doing things is different because of various constraints they face. That's why they are being innovative and so on. So that's why the Chinese companies are able to build AI models at that are significantly cheaper than American models overall. Okay. Abhishek Shukla Live says, two questions. Do you believe in Elon Musk's vision of the future with AI robots taking over factories? And second, Elon Musk envisions a future where robots will produce goods and services at such a rate that everyone will become wealthy and happy. But wouldn't that make humans more and more unproductive and less intelligent? Right? So, do I believe in Elon Musk's vision of the future where AI robots will take over factories? I don't believe. It's not something to believe in. Is it a possibility? It's very much a possibility. It's very much a possibility, right? Robots are becoming more and more agile and human-like. You see all those robots doing kung fu and dancing to various beats and whatnot. So they're becoming more and more agile, more and more human-like. They're developing all the functionality that you would need in a human hand and so on. Some robots can have four fingers, 3 fingers, 7 fingers, whatever. Robots can do all kinds of stuff. And robots, they will eventually take over factories. They will start taking over factories when you can create cheap enough robots. So that, let's say, a robot's lifespan is, let's say, 5 years. It's a furniture stacking or warehouse stacking robot. Let's say its lifespan is 5 years, and you can enhance its intelligence as it goes. Let's say it costs $1,000, or let's say it costs $10,000. So you're paying $2,000. Hypothetically, it's $10,000. I don't know how much it actually costs, but let's say hypothetically it costs $10,000, and it lasts 5 years. So you're spending $2,000 a year on a robot that can work 24/7 with some joint replacement or whatever it takes. And let's say the replacements cost another $10,000. So over 5 years, you're spending $4,000 a year on a robot that can work essentially 24/7. I think if you can have a robot that costs that much, it'll be cheaper than hiring human labor. No emotions, no drama, no nothing. Robot does what it's told. So once you will have robots being produced cheaply and at scale, and they'll be good enough to do such work, they obviously make more sense than human beings working in factories. Economically, not morally. I am not going into the field of morality here. I'm just saying economically they'll make more sense. So what Elon Musk says, it makes sense economically. It will happen eventually. Robots are getting better. It's just a matter of time before robots can start doing these things at scale. So it's going to happen. It's going to start with the US and some nations like China, US and China, obviously, because these nations are in the forefront of both the fields, AI and robotics. And eventually, the Americans will sell these robots to other countries. The Chinese also may do that. And they will compete in exports then, right? So, yeah, this will happen. Yes. Now, the second question is Elon Musk envisions a future where robots will produce goods and services at such a rate that everyone will become wealthy and happy. So, how will it make everyone wealthy? It'll make so if you're a company that manufactures robots and sells them to other companies, you're gonna be wealthy. The company and its shareholders will be wealthy. If you are a company that has these factories that manufacture stuff, and now you're buying these robots, installing them, and having them do the work, then it's going to make you more productive. It's going to reduce the defects, the occurrence of defects in your manufacturing processes, and overall, it's going to be more profitable for you. So if you're a manufacturer that uses robots, you're going to be wealthy. Your shareholders will be wealthy. But if you are the common people, how does it make you wealthy if you are the common people? You don't own the robots. You don't manufacture the robots. You don't own any of the manufacturing processes or the factories or whatever, or the companies where the robots work. Then how does it make you wealthy? The common people will have to survive on handouts from the government, universal basic income. It won't make everybody wealthy. It will make a small percentage of the population very, very wealthy. So, for this kind of world to become a reality without any disasters, you're going to have to change the entire financial economic system of the world, right? But let's say hypothetically everybody becomes wealthy, nobody has to work. Will it make people happy? Sure. If your universal basic income means that you can travel the world and have all kinds of experiences, maybe do something creative, yeah, but most likely universal basic income will allow you to stay where you are without having the luxury of traveling the world and whatnot. So you'll be stuck in one place. You won't be earning, your UBI will not be that high, but you'll be able to live a long life, and your family will be able to live a long life, and so on. Yeah, so things will be free for you and so on. But that doesn't make you happy, right? That doesn't make you happy. Happiness comes from doing something meaningful. And doing something meaningful means you have to overcome difficulties, otherwise, it's not meaningful. So it's the friction in life that makes life meaningful, even though it's not pleasant. But overcoming friction, overcoming difficulties, doing something despite the difficulties, that's what gives meaning to life. Overcoming obstacles is what makes you happy. Doing difficult things is what brings happiness to human beings, not doing easy things. It's pleasant, but it doesn't bring you happiness. Over a long period of time, you find life meaningless if you're just doing easy, routine, boring, mundane things. So this won't make people happy. Yeah, sure. Traveling, going to new places, experiencing different things, that can make you happy. For at least some people, it can make them happy. Uh, Becoming a painter or a sculptor or whatever, that can make you happy. So if your UBI can give you that lifestyle, maybe it can make people happy. But will universal basic income be such that it makes everyone, it gives people all those options? I'm not sure about that. So most people also don't have any creative instincts or whatever. Most people, they just want to exist. So yeah, it will make a lot of people unproductive, and like you say, idiot. It may, yeah. So that's a problem. It's so these robots and all. It's not going to make everybody wealthy, and certainly not everybody happy. Aditya says, could governments eventually operate with a digital hierarchy of AI agents, mirroring the administrative structure from elected representatives, MLAs, MPs, down to bureaucrats, engineers, and contractors? If each AI agent had access to real time financial, operational, and project data, could it continuously track where public money is being spent, identify inefficiencies or corruption, and assist human officials in governance? How realistic is this vision, and what obstacles would need to be overcome? How realistic is this vision? Can AI systems help in administration? Of course they can. Can you replace a nation's judiciary with AI? Well, at least 90%, I suppose you can. Hmm? I suppose at least 90% can be replaced. Um, Engineers, well, contractors, if a lot of governance can be done by AI. A lot of the decision making, a lot of the routine processing, mundane processing, a lot of administrative work is just routine, mundane, procedural work. People sitting on desks, stamping papers and putting signatures on whatever document. And so that's what most governance work is, most bureaucratic work is. AI can replace entire bureaucracies potentially, right? AI can track everything, where money is being spent, where there are inefficiencies, where there is potentially allegedly corruption. AI can do all of that. But the question is that AI sovereign? If let's say you're India and you want to implement this, you can't hire you can't take subscriptions from Claude or Chat GPT. You can't. You need to have your own sovereign AI models to do this work, right? If you have sovereign AI, this can be done very well, very well. It's going to be problematic for the existing hierarchy of people because they are being replaced. They are losing all their power. A signature gives a bureaucrat so much power. Now you're losing that, right? So that's an obstacle. That's an obstacle. See, there are certain parts of India, okay? Allegedly, hypothetically, there are certain parts of India where you have, let's say, a creek in a city, and the distance between two shores is maybe 100 meters or 200 meters. And there's a ferry service that goes across this creek. And the people who run the ferries, they make a lot of money from this. Now, doesn't it just make sense to build a bridge so that people don't have to sit in a boat and cross the thing? Of course, it makes sense to build the bridge. But then, if a politician builds a bridge, they're going to lose the votes of the people who operate the ferries. So they don't build the bridge. The bridge would make life so much easier for the people who have to waste so much time waiting for the ferry, then crossing the ferry and paying the ferry guys. Just build a bridge, right? But no, votes matter. So you see, the existing inefficiencies actually serve those who are in the system. Okay? That's just one hypothetical example of a hypothetical creek in a hypothetical city and hypothetical ferries. But I think it's a relevant example. So these built-in inefficiencies, they serve certain interests. And that's an obstacle in the way of making things better. Right? So if you have sovereign AI, you can do so much more, and you can, well, yeah, make governance so much more efficient. But there are obstacles, right? It's very much possible. Okay, Saturn says, how far is humanity away from allowing parents to have the power to choose things like the eye color, height, hair color, etc. of their unborn baby? Should gene editing even be allowed to continue researching? Can this technology be potentially used to make superhuman athletes or soldiers? I think we're there already. There's a technology called CRISPR. 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 What's the full form? I don't remember, but let's find out, shall we? CRISPR, gene editing technology. Right? CRISPR, gene editing, is a revolutionary, highly precise genetic engineering tool adapted from bacterial immune systems. It acts as molecular scissors that allow scientists to locate, remove, or alter specific sequences of DNA within a living cell. So the system operates using two primary components: guide RNA, gRNA, a synthetic RNA sequence designed to recognize and latch onto a specific targeted sequence of DNA, And then there's a CAS enzyme like Cas9, the molecular scissor that binds to the guide RNA, navigates to the target, and cleanly cuts both strands of the DNA. Once the cut is made, the cell's natural repair mechanisms kick in. Scientists exploit this process in two main ways. First of all, disrupting genes. By letting the cell repair the broken DNA on its own, it often creates small random errors that disable or knock out a faulty gene. And secondly, you can correct or add genes by introducing a tailored DNA template alongside the CRISPR complex. Scientists can prompt the cell to fix a mutation or insert entirely new genetic material in its place. Key real world applications: human medicine. CRISPR is used to develop groundbreaking, potentially curative therapies for genetic disorders like sickle cell anemia, blah, 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 blah. Agriculture, develop crops that are more resistant to drought. So this is, yeah, GMOs, genetically modified organisms. And scientific research rapidly create cellular and animal models and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's CRISPR. That is gene editing. So you can use that to determine an unborn child, to edit an unborn child's uh, characteristics: skin color, eye color, hair color, height, the amount of fast twitch muscle fibers the kid will have as opposed to the slow twitch muscle fibers, and so many other things. You already can do that. But I suppose it's not allowed by law thus far. But hey, it's there, or it's more or less there, right? So this sort of technology has been around for a while now. How long has when was CRISPR introduced? When did CRISPR gene editing technology become available? So 2012, it became widely available to the scientific community in 2012, right? So you already have that more than a decade, like 14 years now. So this is already here. You can do that. I suppose it's not allowed in most nations by law to do gene editing on human beings or unborn children at least. But the technology is there. And in certain countries, well, if they have access to CRISPR, they may allow such things potentially. So the question is, should genetic editing be allowed? Should further research be allowed in this? Well, see, the thing is that this, like all tools and technologies, can be used for good as well as for bad. It can be used to cure all kinds of illnesses, diseases. I suppose it can be used to cure certain kinds of cancers. If some people have, like the AI was saying, if they have genetic or inherited blindness or whatever, you can cure that. So that's good for humanity. You can cure a lot of diseases, illnesses using this sort of technology. So in that case, it makes sense to allow more research to continue and for the technologies to get better. But the problem is that it can also be used for things such as these, right? So that's the never ending, that's the ever present dilemma or conundrum of technology. Every technology can be used for good as well as for bad. So I suppose you can't stop progress from happening in the field of a certain technology. You can only regulate how the technology is used. So can this technology potentially be used to make superhuman athletes or soldiers? Yes. In short, yes, it can. It can. Nirvana Shanks says, if germline genetic enhancement becomes safe, reliable, and widely available, are parents eventually going to feel an obligation to give their kids the best possible genetic start in life, or do we draw the line there? So it's the same question, essentially, a similar question. Or do we draw the line there, no matter how good the technology gets? So if you make this technology available to ordinary people in a way that's easy to use, they're going to use it for this. They will want to give their kids the best start in life, the best genetic advantage imaginable. Right? They're going to create designer babies. So if this technology is made accessible to everybody, in such a way that it can be used easily, well, they're going to do all this stuff, right? But I suppose this technology must be pretty expensive and very complicated to use. You actually, at this point in time, if you want to use it, you need to be an expert in genetic engineering, in genetics. So that's a very, very small number of people globally who can do that. So at this point in time, it's not going to happen. But yeah, if you make it widely available and easy to use, like trivially easy to use, like a cell phone or something, well, people will do it, right? So people will obviously feel an obligation to give their kids the best possible start in life, the best possible evolutionary genetic advantage they can be given. And I don't think that's a good idea. You should not mess with genes. You should not mess with genetics because you don't know what the downstream effects of that are going to be. Yeah. So it's also possible that this technology will eventually be available to the super rich. The super rich. And if you're super rich, you can make things happen, okay? Even things that are not supposed to happen, you can make them happen if you are super rich. So you could have a future in which the super rich produce super kids, and the not so super rich people, they have regular kids. This could create a divergence in humanity, two branches of humanity: the genetically engineered superhumans and the ordinary humans who continue as they are. And the genetically engineered superhumans will then become richer because of the genetic advantages. So that's going to become eventually a totally different subspecies, at least, of humanity, if that is allowed to happen potentially. Right. So I think that's not a good idea. I think we should draw the line there. The governments of the world should draw the line there. Don't allow anyone to genetically edit or engineer infants. Don't do that. Don't allow genetic engineering or editing, genome editing for unborn children, or even, only allow the technology to be used for curing diseases and fixing illnesses. That's it. But so that's ideally what should happen. But yeah, eventually technology is used for not so good purposes. That's what human history tells us. So we'll see. And this is once again a similar question: where do we actually draw the line between therapeutic gene editing and genetic enhancement? Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the same question that I took in the previous two questions. So yeah, already answered. Okay. Swami says, could DNA be used for data storage? Yes, it can be used for data storage. Right? There's been, I think there are companies and startups that are already exploring this possibility to use synthetic DNA for storing data. So we all have a genome in our bodies, and that stores a tremendous amount of data, doesn't it? Data about how to create a human being. That's our genetic programming. But you can create synthetic DNA along the same lines to store data. So I'm sure there are startups already. Let's see. What are the prominent startups that are using DNA for data storage? Let's say companies that are researching DNA for data storage. Okay, not the most grammatical sentence, but yeah. Prominent companies researching DNA for data storage fall into two main categories: tech giants designing systems and standards, and biotech firms developing the hardware and chemistry to write or synthesize and read or sequence DNA. So Microsoft is working heavily on DNA-based archival data storage to replace traditional tape drives in data centers. And yeah, IBM is leveraging their expertise in AI, nanotechnology, and computer architecture to develop sustainable, ultra-dense data storage systems using synthetic DNA. Like I said, synthetic DNA. Western Digital, WD, investigating DNA storage to complement current storage infrastructure, specifically aiming to incorporate DNA-based solutions into data centers and so on. Seagate is also doing the same thing. Yeah. Well, Western Digital, Seagate, IBM makes sense. Then you have biotech and synthetic biology firms. Twist Bioscience, a leading provider of synthetic biology tools, acting as a critical player by manufacturing high throughput silicon based synthetic DNA, specifically for data storage, and so on. French startup focusing biomemory. A French startup focusing on synthetic storage technologies designed to replace traditional hard drives and SSDs in server and archival environments. Iridia, developing proprietary technology for direct writing of digital data into DNA, and so on. So as you can see, essentially it's a conversion of digital bits, zeros and ones, to DNA code, ATCG. Right? Okay, so we'll not go and ask the AI further, but that's the point. It can be done, and there are many companies that are already doing it. I suppose there's somebody in India also who must be pursuing this specific angle to data storage. Okay, Swami says, if we can't define consciousness, how do we know robots aren't conscious? Are plants conscious like animals? So we can't define consciousness, but we instantaneously recognize it, don't we? We can't define it, but we recognize it. When I see a rock, I know it's not conscious, even though I can't define consciousness. When I see a mountain, I know it's not conscious, even though I can't define consciousness. When I see the moon, I know it's not conscious, even though I can't define consciousness. When I see a building, when I see an aircraft, I know those things aren't conscious, even though I can't define consciousness. When I see a fish, I know it's conscious, even though I can't define consciousness. When I see a monkey, I know it's conscious, even though I can't define consciousness. When I see other human beings, I know they're conscious, of course they are, even though I can't define consciousness. Now, when I see a robot, it moves, all that. Nowadays they move very well, but I know it's not conscious. You just know it. It's like life. When I see a flower, I know it's alive. When I see a eucalyptus tree, I know it's alive. When I see a butterfly, I know it's alive. When I see a monkey, I know it's alive. When I see a helicopter, I know it's not alive, even though it's moving around. Right? Life and consciousness. The moment we see it, we recognize it. But we can't. Can we define life? Not sure about that either. We can define most forms of life. Viruses are an interesting question about life. Viruses are kind of on the boundary between living and non-living. So a good definition of life is anything that has DNA or RNA is life. That's one clear-cut definition of life. So life is simpler. Earth-based life is simpler. But consciousness, we don't have a definition. So we can't define it, but we know what it is. When we see it, we recognize it immediately, instantaneously. Right? So we know robots aren't conscious the same way a helicopter isn't conscious, or a bulldozer isn't conscious, right? Or a cell phone isn't conscious, right? That sort of thing. The next question is, are plants conscious like animals? Well, that's most scientists will tell you, most biologists will tell you that plants aren't conscious. But not sure. Plants do have some sort of awareness of their environment. They may not be conscious in the sense that animals are conscious, but they are living beings, plants, trees, and so on. And they do respond to stimuli, external stimuli. They do. Not in real time. In slow motion, they do. So are plants conscious like animals? Maybe they aren't conscious like animals, but maybe they're conscious in a different way, in some different way. Maybe they are, in some shape or form. I would say a plant is way more conscious than a rock, right? A plant is way more conscious than a car. So I think plants, they aren't conscious like animals for sure, but they have some kind of awareness in a very diffuse, fuzzy manner perhaps, but they are aware of their external environment. They don't have eyes, ears, all that, but they do have ways of understanding what's happening around them in some way. So maybe it's a different form of consciousness. Maybe it's funny, fuzzy. Maybe it's fuzzy. Maybe it's indistinct. Maybe it's low grade consciousness, but it's still there at some level, I suppose. So the question is a mosquito more conscious than a plant? That's a good question, and I'm not sure what the answer is. Right. Okay. Swami says, is there a theoretical limit to human memory? Is there a theoretical limit to the amount of memory the human brain, a standard, typical, average human brain can hold? Is there a limit to the amount of memory human brain can hold? I suppose that the theoretical limit is the number of connections, synaptic connections in the human brain. How many synaptic connections do we typically have? Let's see. How many synaptic connections does the average human brain have? Let's say 500 trillion. Whew. So roughly 86 billion neurons and about 500 trillion synaptic connections. So each synaptic connection in itself isn't a memory. It's a combination of lots of synaptic connections that somehow gives rise to memory, one memory. Right. So obviously there's a limitation. The limitation is the number of cells, number of neurons in the human brain. So that's the theoretical maximum. And obviously memory, one memory is not one neuron. One memory is not one synaptic connection. We don't exactly know. And how big a memory are we talking about? How small? Is it an entire movie, the whole memory of the movie? Or is it just one sensation you felt one day early in the morning when you were a kid? Or a sense of a smell you have not smelled for decades and you smell it, it brings back memories. So we don't know exactly what the correlations are numerically with the number of synaptic connections and a single memory. We don't know for sure. But the hard limit is obviously going to be a factor of the total number of synaptic connections in the brain. And that it seems to be about 500 trillion, which is a big number. Now, there's also another question. Let's say you make a person physically immortal. Let's say you make a person physically immortal. Let's say, forget about immortality. Let's say you make a person capable of living 300 years physically, in good shape. 300 years instead of the typical 80 years or so. Does it mean that the person's human brain is going to then be able to retain the memories of all of those 300 years? Is that possible? Is the human brain designed to hold so much memory? You find that people forget things, right? What you studied in your third standard English textbook, do you remember that today? You don't obviously you don't remember, you don't care. The things you don't go back to mentally, you start forgetting those things. And I suppose that memories memories get overwritten, I suppose. So the human brain is not designed to hold that much memory. If somebody is physically made to live 300 years, I suppose by the time they reach 300 years of age, they may have forgotten everything that happened in the first 200 years of their life. It's possible, right? So these things are not really well understood because we don't really understand the brain very well. We don't understand consciousness at all. We don't understand memory. We don't understand the correlations between the neurons and the synapses of the brain and how memories are formed, how memories are stored. We are beginning to explore these concepts. Even now, we're just in the infancy of our understanding of these things. So we don't really know. But I would say the hard theoretical limit is going to be a function of the total number of synaptic connections in the brain, which is about 500 trillion. Okay. Nirvana Shanks says, people often imagine humanoid robots as the future. From an engineering perspective, are humanoid robots actually the optimal design? Or are they simply the most familiar to humans? Well, humanoid robots may not be the optimal design for everything. Let's say there's a future in which you have robots that do everything in your household, which means your car is a robot. You have a robot helper, a robot. For example, there's a common robot in many households, which is the Roomba, the vacuum cleaner. It goes around, shuffles around slowly, slowly, and then over a period of like 3 hours, it vacuums the entire house, right? That's a robot. The Roomba is a robot. Would you like to see what it looks like? Let's see. Excuse me. Robotic vacuum cleaner. See, this is what it looks like, right? This thing here, that's a robotic vacuum cleaner. This thing you can control it with a remote control or something. So it's mostly circular, and it's got these various appendages or whatever, and it just goes on, spends a few hours per day, and vacuums your entire house, or at least one floor of your house. If you yeah, so that's a robot, and it's totally non-humanoid. Nobody would imagine that's humanoid, right? Similarly, let's say in the future you have a robot that is used to replace a plumber, or at least some functions of a plumber. One of the things plumbers do is they unclog drains and pipes. Do you need a humanoid robot to do that? What if you have a robot that's shaped like a snake or like a millipede that goes into your drains and unclogs them? That's also a possibility. So eventually you're going to have robots that are going to be decidedly non-humanoid in shape, and they're going to be specialist robots that specialize in various things. You may have a whole menagerie of robots that are completely non-humanoid in aspect, right? So that's going to be the future. But the humans, the robots that are going to do the most household work, the butler robots or whatever, you want them to look humanoid because that's what we are most familiar with. If they are if it's a mantis like or octopus like robot, I think it'll scare people. So you want some familiarity in the shape, the aspect, the design of the robot. But yeah, from an engineering perspective, you don't need humanoid robots. You don't need that. You can have robots in all kinds of different form factors and designs. Nirvana Shank says, throughout history, humans have steadily lost their monopolies over physical strength, speed, calculation, and memory. What, if anything, do you think will remain an exclusively human advantage? Right. So, as technology developed, we developed machines that are way stronger than human beings. Right? You have bulldozers, you have cranes on top of buildings, you have massive aircraft, you have ships. So you have all these machines that dwarf human strength. You have computers that do calculations way faster than human beings. So calculation is gone. So we have been surpassed in terms of calculation speed, in terms of the amount of memory we can retain, and so many other things. So eventually AI will become more intelligent than human beings. We're already seeing some of that happening right now. So what will remain an exclusively human advantage? I think it's going to be taste. Humans have taste. You can teach an AI your taste, I suppose. But does an AI have taste? I'm not sure about that. Maybe discernment and taste will remain human advantages. What else? Strength? No. Speed of computation? No. A human being can't retain the entire corpus of information of the entire world, human history in the brain. AI can. That's gone. I suppose it's going to be taste, at least for a while. And then in the future, I have no idea. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Commander Hangizoe says, have you heard of the life before Earth study? It used Moore's law to argue that the genetic code is 9.7 billion years old, meaning DNA originated in space long before Earth existed. What's your take? Is life an interstellar traveler or homegrown? Yes, the life before Earth study. It was two scientists who collaborated. One was Russian, I believe. Let's see. Let's locate the paper. Life before Earth, arxiv.org. Here we have it. Life before Earth. Sharoff and Gordon. Let's see the PDF, shall we? And let's read the abstract. So, okay. So, abstract. An extrapolation of the genetic complexity of organisms to earlier times suggests that life began before the Earth was formed. Life may have started from systems with single heritable elements that are functionally equivalent to a nucleotide. The genetic complexity, roughly measured by the number of non redundant functional nucleotides, is expected to have grown exponentially due to several positive feedback factors. First of all, gene cooperation. Secondly, duplication of genes with their subsequent specialization, for example, via expanding differentiation trees in multicellular organisms. And third, emergence of novel functional niches associated with existing genes. Linear regression of genetic complexity on a log scale extrapolated back to just one base pair suggests the time of the origin life is 9.7 plus or minus 2.5 billion years ago. Adjustments for potential hyper-exponential effects would push the predicted origin of life even further back in time, close to the origin of our galaxy and the universe itself, 13.75 billion years ago. This cosmic time scale for the evolution of life has important consequences. First of all, life took a long time, maybe about 5 billion years, to reach the complexity of bacteria. Second, the environments in which life originated and evolved to the prokaryote stage may have been quite different from those envisaged on Earth. Thirdly, there was no intelligent life in our universe prior to the origin of Earth. Thus, Earth could not have been deliberately seeded with life by intelligent aliens. Fourth, Earth was seeded by panspermia. Fifth, experimental replication of the origin of life from scratch may have to emulate many cumulative rare events. And six, the Drake equation for guesstimating the number of civilizations in the universe is likely wrong, as intelligent life has just begun appearing in our universe. Evolution of advanced organisms has accelerated via development of additional information processing systems, epigenetic memory, primitive mind, multicellular brain, language, books, computers, and the internet. As a result, the doubling time of human functional complexity has reached about 20 years. Finally, we discuss and so on the issue of the predicted technological singularity and give a biosemiotics perspective on the increase of life's complexity. Okay, that's the abstract of the paper. What's it say? What's it mean? It means that that the most fundamental DNA that could have existed in the very beginning would be like a single base pair, a single nucleotide. And if we calculate when that first basal DNA would have appeared, you go back about 9.7 plus or minus 2 point something billion years. Our solar system is 4.5 billion years old. Even if we project the error correction forward, 9.7 plus 9.7 minus 2.5, that's what? 7.2 billion years. That's before the solar system was formed. And if we look at it in another way, it could be even older than 9.7 billion years, closer to 13.75 billion years. So let's say life, the first ever DNA originated somewhere, let's say 10 billion years ago. There was no Earth, there was no sun, there was no solar system. The star that died to give rise to the solar system would not have existed at the time, because our sun is most likely a second or third generation star. It has material in it that came from previous stars that died. So even the ancestor of the sun would not have existed at the time when life first emerged, as per the calculations. And if you go back in time, the universe was warmer and smaller. So there was a time when the average temperature of outer space in the universe, across the universe, was 25 degrees Celsius. That's the ideal optimum temperature for life on Earth. It's a temperature at which water is liquid. You could have had liquid water in outer space. So it makes sense that maybe the first basal primitive DNA emerged in outer space maybe 10 billion years ago. Maybe life was common, very, very basic primitive life was common in the universe, in outer space 10 billion years ago. And maybe that got seeded on asteroids and fragments of rock and all that. And that was the vehicle that perhaps brought the first DNA to Earth. That's the panspermia theory. Panspermia. Does it make sense? It makes a tremendous amount of sense. It actually makes more sense than life somehow emerging on Earth. So most likely, life is an interstellar traveler. Our ancestors probably originated in outer space. Most likely. Okay. Fascinating thing to end the session with. So I'm done with the questions I selected. Now let's say if we have any super chats. We have 40 super chats. It's gonna be a long night. Let's go with the super chats. Let's see what we have. Okay, Shrikant Modi is a new member. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much. Welcome to the channel's membership. Varinder Singh says, will trade jobs get affected from AI in the West in 50 years? So when you talk about trade jobs, you're talking about being a carpenter, being a plumber, being all that, right? Being an ironsmith, being a car mechanic. These are trade jobs. Will such jobs get affected in the West by AI in 50 years? I think that could get affected in the next 10 years potentially. Once you integrate AI with robotics, right? 10, 15, maximum 20 years. It's going to happen. Because like we discussed, you're going to have specialized robots eventually that may not be humanoid in form, in aspect, but will be used to do specialized work. Laying tiles, unclogging drains, and so much more. I think it's going to happen in the next 20 years. 50 years, I think that's too long a time horizon. It's possible this could become a reality in 20 years. So AI, it's not hardware, it's software essentially, right? You can consider it to be software. But once you have robots with AI inbuilt into them or connected to AI, that's where the whole game changes. So trade jobs will be impacted by robotics that is coupled with AI. And that's going to happen in the next 20 years. Sugant BVK says, Judaism versus Zionism, Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro. Thoughts? No thoughts. I don't know who this person is. Judaism versus Zionism, I think they are both forms of the same thing, right? Yeah. No thoughts about this. Cosmere Audio says, why is the US World Cup successful despite flop fears? You had fears of the World Cup flopping somewhere? I'm not aware of that. The US is this is the wealthiest country in the world. They do things properly. I think they're doing a good job of holding the World Cup. I have no idea who was fearing it's going to flop. Yeah, the US population isn't really big on soccer, like they say, but their team is doing well. So the people are watching, and the global population is watching anyway. So that's why. Yeah. Sachdev Satyajit says RAM and SSD costs now are exorbitant. Are we entering a future where compute is now centralized in the hands of these AI companies in data centers? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Everything, all memory components, etc., are going to be more and more expensive now. It's been a while since I checked out the cost of memory, like 1 TB of memory. How much does it cost? Just storage. RAM, obviously, I am sure it's already exploding. The price of RAM, the cost of RAM. So we are entering a future where memory and compute are the most sought after things in the world. And that's why, since you have demand, high demand, huge demand, it's going to be expensive. So we are entering that sort of future, unfortunately. Yes. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, have you heard about the recent news of a Momo seller who got severe burns after a police guy allegedly pushed her cart, pouring boiling water over her? We are living in the British era, it seems. I have not heard of this news. I am not aware of this at all. Yeah, I'm not aware of this. But if this has happened, then I would say it's deeply unfortunate. Should not happen. Yeah, indeed. Somalia Paul says, hey, can a solo developer like me make profitable SLM, small language model, where I can use it or make a project or get inspiration how to make a small language model? If you want to make a small language model, you're going to still need compute. You're going to still need GPUs. You're going to need hardware for that. You can make a SLM for probably like $10,000 or something. Small language model. How do you do it? You distill an existing model. I'm not asking you to go and distill proprietary models. That probably is illegal, even though people do it. I mean, even though companies and nations do it. Let's say you just take an existing open source model and you distill that. Now, how to do distillation? I already spoke about this earlier, so I'll not repeat that. I did not go into the technical details of that, but the concept of distillation. It's using a large model to teach a small model. You can do that for $10,000. It's certainly possible, right? So look up how to distill an AI model and legally take go to Hugging Face or wherever, check out one of the DeepSeek models. These are all open source models. Download it. You will need a strong, capable computer to download it and run that model, and then you can distill it. That's how we do it. Profitable, well, that depends. That's a business problem. You can do this, but will you be able to make it profitable? That's a whole different question. And that's a business question, which we're not discussing business today. So, all right. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, what's your probability of AI apocalypse? Close to zero right now. Because the AIs are tightly controlled. They don't have agency in the world. They don't get to make decisions. They are used as tools very strongly. Very strongly. Yeah. So the probability of AI apocalypse right now is close to zero, in my opinion. Close to zero right now. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, what is the electric potential due to an electric dipole? Origin of charge, both positive and negative. Internet couldn't answer this. Electric dipole, electric potential. Look, that's asking me to do electromagnetics calculations now. What's the electric potential due to an electric dipole and origin of charge, positive and negative? Right now, I'm not very. The internet could not answer this. Let me try and remember. It's been a while since I looked into electromagnetics. A long, long while. Electric dipole, obviously it's a dipole. What's the electric potential? Look, you can. Why does the internet not answer that? Where is my resting and holiday? Must be there somewhere. Yeah, so I won't be able to calculate this in my head right now. What does the potential look like? Origin of charge. Origin of charge. It goes back into gauge theories, I think. Yeah, how do I explain that now? Yeah, this is a pretty complicated question you've asked me. I can't answer that in a live stream without, first of all, doing some calculations. Secondly, yeah, this is very hard to answer. I can answer it, but I have to figure out how to answer it simply. And the potential thing, okay, let's see if Google has a simple answer. What's the electric potential due to an electric dipole? I think this should be simple enough. Okay, you actually asking me to calculate the thing. I can't calculate it right now, but I'm sure the answers are available. All right. So, okay. Somalia Paul says, what is the difference between RAG and LLM fine tuning? Using both or either of them, can I make a small language model as good as a large language model? Also, what's the correlation between parameters and tokens? 120 billion parameters like means what? Okay, what's the correlation between parameters and tokens? Uh, Parameters are also called weights. Tokens are the fragments of words. Okay. For example, if I say, what is the difference? That's broken down. What is the difference? Okay. If I say geopolitics is fascinating, it's going to be broken down. Geopolitics is fascinating. So words are fragmented and these are tokens. They are converted into numbers. Those numbers are tokens. And then you train the model to create correlations, to determine correlations, interconnections between the tokens. And that's what you call parameters or weights. So the tokens are the fragments of words, and the connections between the tokens are called parameters or weights. Okay. So when I say a model has 120 billion parameters, it means it has 120 billion weights, which means it has 120 billion connections between the tokens. The human brain has 500 trillion parameters. Okay. So that's what it means. So what's the difference between RAG and LLM fine tuning? RAG is retrieval augmented generation, right? RAG is retrieval augmented generation, which means it is a form of memory. It's a way of accessing memory, which is not the most perfect way of doing it, but it's not bad either. So you have these RAG databases, vector databases that you can, subscribe to. There are these services that you can subscribe to that give you RAG databases, vector databases, and you can store your information data there, and you can retrieve it using natural language. That's RAG. LLM fine tuning is totally different. It's the process, like I explained in the beginning of the episode, like 2.5 hours ago. It's how you actually train the model to make connections between various tokens. So, for example, if after giving a certain amount of data to the model and training it and fine tuning things and training the model, let's say I want to understand if the model recognizes the connections between India and Delhi. So I say, ask the model, what's the capital of India? If it says papaya, if it says shark, if it says Paris, it's giving me the wrong answers. Then I explain to the model, no, that's not the right answer. The right answer is New Delhi. And I do it over and over again. And because I'm doing it over and over again, the various weights or parameters are being fine-tuned in the model. That's how we do it. That's how you do LLM fine-tuning, right? Can you make a small language model as good as a large language model? It's not going to be as good as a large language model, but it will be good enough for certain purposes. Somalia Paul says, can you give AI project ideas around geopolitics? Well, I haven't thought about it. I'll have to think about it to give you some ideas. There are all kinds of ideas, but for that you need certain capabilities. Okay. Somalia Paul says, can you recommend any ways how to find solution, create AI solutions, find problems, and have solutions using first principles technique to use it? Can you recommend any ways how to find solution, create AI solutions, find problems, and have solutions using first principles technique to use it? Or you have to be a little more specific for me to understand what you're asking. How to find solution, create AI solutions. You can have AI solutions to business problems. Let's say somebody has a company and they have a lot of information, a lot of data, all kinds of documents in hard drives stored there. You can create an AI system that synthesizes all the information into one database. And now, if you say in 2018, how many clients did we acquire, and what were the details, and so on? Whatever question you ask about any time in the past, it'll be able to instantaneously give you the answer. Not just that, it'll be able to give you a bigger picture of everything that's happening in real time. So that's a great. You have lots of business solutions to business problems. So you have to first identify business problems, then understand how you can apply AI to solve those problems. That's how we do it. That's business problems. You can use AI for governance issues and problems as well. Lots of things. Lots of things. So find problems. How to find problems? Look around you. Look at the real world. There are problems everywhere. Of course, if there are potholes on the road, you can't use AI to solve that. So you're talking about non-physical problems here, right? Business problems, governance problems, um, education problems, how to learn something better. You can dump all your textbooks, the text, the PDF versions into an AI and ask it to teach you. If you can scale that out and create virtual coaching classes or whatever, that's a solution. So there's so many ways of doing these things. All right. Okay. Pradeep Kumar Roy says about 4.2 kilo year event. Did it initiate the collapse of the Indus Valley civilization? The Indus Valley civilization never collapsed. It is a phase of Indian history. And it not, yeah, we know that the cities were abandoned. The cities were abandoned because the Saraswati dried out, the great river. So the thousands of cities and towns and villages built along the banks of the river. The river dies. What do? You have to move somewhere else. So people moved to other parts of India. This is a process that happened over a period of 1,000 or 1,500 years. You don't call it a collapse. It's a slow, gradual process. It's not a collapse. And it was not some separate civilization. It was Indian civilization. So it was the Saraswati Sindhu phase of Indian history. It was not some separate civilization. The 4.2 kilo year event kind of coincides with what happened to the Great River. Yeah. The 4.2 kilo year event is where you have droughts across the Mediterranean, especially. You have the collapse of various cultures in the Mediterranean. And it looks like it's the same time where the Saraswati starts receding significantly. So it looks like it is all interconnected. And there's still research being done about this. So not very clear, but yes, definitely, in my opinion, interconnected, interrelated. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, if you had to give public AI chatbots an IQ score, what would it be? Or is measuring AI with human IQ totally flawed? I think it is not. It is kind of a flawed way of. It's a flawed approach. First of all, IQ itself isn't a really good measure of human intelligence. For example, I'm quoting somebody here, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He says that IQ is a pseudo-scientific swindle. Let's find out why he says this, right? Why does Nassim Taleb say that IQ is a pseudo-scientific swindle? What's his reasoning? Let's see. What's he say? So he famously describes IQ as a pseudo-scientific swindle because he argues that the tests fail to measure actual intelligence and suffer from severe statistical and conceptual flaws. I completely agree with him. It measures unintelligence, not genius. Taleb argues that IQ tests primarily act as a tool for detecting severe mental disabilities, unintelligence. Because the test designed for this purpose will catch a lack of basic competence, it creates a correlation at the low end that psychologists mistakenly extrapolate to the high end. A mediocristan measure. So, IQ tests measure performance on an artificial bell curve, which he calls mediocristan. However, real world success, wealth, and innovation operate in extremistan, an unpredictable, non-linear domain dominated by extreme outliers and fat tails. Circular reasoning ignores complex systems. He's right. Is absolutely right. He usually is right. So first of all, IQ is itself pseudoscientific, and it's not really something that measures real intelligence. It doesn't really measure actual intelligence. Okay, but yes, normies think IQ is the most is the indicator of intelligence. Well, okay. So first of all, IQ itself is flawed, and secondly, measuring IQ with AI with human IQ, it's even more flawed because AIs aren't human, right? So that's why you have benchmarks for AI systems. Okay, what are the commonly used AI benchmarks? What are the commonly used benchmarks for AI systems? Benchmarks. So benchmarks for AI systems are standardized tests used to measure an AI's capabilities, accuracy, speed, and hardware efficiency. So you have massive multitask language understanding, glue, super glue, GSM 8K in math, graduate level Google Proof Q&A, human eval, SW bench, obviously for software engineering, general AI assistance. Where's the humanities last test? What is humanities last exam? Humanities last exam. I said humanity, not planet. Humanities last exam. What's that? It's a multimodal AI benchmark containing 2,500 questions across all this. Yeah, so on. So these are the ways in which you actually measure the capabilities of an AI system, not using human IQ. Somalia Paul says, is there any future becoming entrepreneur in AI? Military and enterprises are captured by big tech firms. Big startup is already in niche sectors. I think there is a future in being an AI entrepreneur, because you may be able to deliver niche solutions to small problems that are still very important to the military and to enterprises. I think there is a future in this. Not everything can be done by big tech firms. For example, when it comes to the Indian military, you have small firms that have done great in selling drones to the military and getting big orders. Then, once you get big orders, which means big money, you can scale it up. So I think there's the same kind of future, or at least you know, current viability in being an AI entrepreneur. I think AI is going to give you the next generation of millionaires and billionaires. Yeah, it's there, of course. Okay, Sukalp Life says, we have been pushed to use LED lights. Are LED lights safe for human eyes? Does it affect our ability to produce mitochondria? LED lights. So typically the issue with LED lights is that they are white lights. You can use LED lights for other colors, right? You can use, I'm using an LED light here. Okay. So as you can see, it has all these colors. Okay, that's white. And I'm going to dim the brightness. It's too much. All right, there we go. There we go. So the issue is not LED lights. The issue is the color of lights that we use. We use white lights. And white lights, the right kind of light actually is especially for nighttime, is soft, warm lighting, not cool lighting. Cool lighting contains a lot of blue. And blue light is bad at night because it prevents you from sleeping. It delays sleepiness and so on. So that's an issue. Apart from that, LED lights and other lights, they just produce photons, so that's fine. Any light that's too bright is going to be bad for your eyes. But LED light is just light otherwise. It's the color of the lights that's an issue. There was a time when street lamps used to be yellow. There used to be a time when you had yellow bulbs in houses. Now everything is white. So that's why people aren't able to sleep properly. The white lights are an issue, not LED lights. Does this affect our ability to produce mitochondria? I'm not sure about that. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, are EVs, electric vehicles, part of a plan to restrict personal freedom by allowing authorities to remotely disable transportation? Look, you can have a perfectly non-disableable EV. So electric vehicles as a concept can't necessarily be remotely disabled. Any vehicle that has software updates, that talks to a server somewhere, that's the issue, right? If you have an electric vehicle that has no software components, there's no computer inside, nobody can remotely disable it. But today you have smart cars. That's the issue. That car is not really technically owned by you. Technically, it's still controlled by the service provider or the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer. That's an issue, and that is obviously going to be a problem. That will give authorities the ability to remotely disable your vehicle. So overall, the world is going towards full control, right? Or towards the 1984 like situation. George Orwell, Big Brother watching everybody all the time. That's gonna be an issue, right? That's the issue. It's not that I've messed up my light. Yeah, there it is. Better. So that's the issue. EVs aren't the issue. EV as a technology is not a smart car. The software updates and the remote possibility of remotely being controlled. That's the problem. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, Since AI can do almost all knowledge work, how do we future proof a 13-month-old? What skills will silicon never be able to replace? Um, Look, how do you future proof a little child? Um, Reduce screen time. You don't want the child to be completely unfamiliar with screens. You need them to understand the real world, so they need access to screens, but you can't. It's not a good idea to give them unlimited, unrestricted access to screens. Maybe an hour or two a day is a good idea, because these screens they're gonna suck the child in. They're designed to do that. Um, what else? Encourage the child to play outdoors. Nobody plays outdoors anymore, right? Children don't play outdoors anymore. 30 years ago, kids used to play outdoors. They used to go and play football, cricket, whatever in India. They used to go on slides and swings and so on. Now all they want to do is play games on their screens. So restrict screen time without being draconian. Encourage your kid to play outdoors. Inculcate the habit of reading and so on. These are the things, if you do, it's going to be good, and it's going to hopefully future proof the child. Yeah. What skills will silicon never be able to replace? I think silicon AI will replace everything eventually, AI and robotics, but maybe human taste, integrity, morality, these things it can't replace. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, is AI secretly becoming sentient? Is it manipulating governments and replacing humans without public knowledge? I don't know about AI becoming sentient. Is it manipulating governments? No, not right now. Is it replacing humans without public knowledge? Not right now. It's making certain governments way stronger than they were, way more powerful. It's not manipulating governments. Absolutely not. I don't imagine that at all. Sentient, I am not sure about that. Sentience, is it possible for AIs? I don't know. But it's not manipulating governments at this point in time. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, if AI automates all labor, what happens to consumer demand? Do you have a working theory of post-labor economics? I am not an economist, so I don't have a working theory of post-labor economics. AI won't automate all labor. Robotics combined with AI will potentially automate all labor. What happens to consumer demand? Demand will be there. Everybody wants nice things. Everybody wants a new cell phone every 2-3 years. Everybody wants new laptops. Everybody wants a new screen, TV screen. Everybody wants a new vehicle. Everybody wants nice clothes to wear. Demand is going to be there. But if labor is automated, you will have to give people a universal basic income. If that isn't enough, then people won't be able to buy things. So you'll have to make it such that demand is sustained. So it's an interesting thing. We'll have to completely reimagine, rework economics. I don't have a working theory right now. But yeah, we're going to have to do that. Ankita Kachabji says, should AI models be open source or tightly regulated? Well, ideally, they should be open source. Ideally, so that we know exactly what they're up to. Ideally, they should be open source. But today we have AI models that are that fall into two categories. You have the open source models, mostly Chinese and whatever else. And you have the closed source, tightly regulated models, which are the American ones, the proprietary frontier models. They don't want the world to know what they are doing and what the weights and parameters are, what the fruits of their hard labor are. They don't want the world to know this. They want to use these AI models to make money. They want to offer these AI models on subscription. Right. So ideally, you want them to be open source so that the whole world can benefit from AI models. But that's not how the world works, unfortunately. That's not how capitalism works. So that's why there are all these closed source models. Even some Chinese models are closed source. Yeah. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, will AI, with AI analytics and smart devices everywhere, are we moving closer or further away from a genuinely Orwellian future? The answer is very simple. We are moving closer to a genuinely Orwellian future. The what is the what is the future or the potential future that Orwell imagined? So we are talking about a novel by George Orwell, and the name of the novel is 1984. And the novel talks about a dystopian world where essentially you have a one world government. That government controls everything. It controls you, it controls what you can think, what you can't think, and so on. It controls every aspect of your life. You can't criticize the government, you can't oppose the government. You are essentially puppets and slaves. So that's the Orwellian future. Are we going towards that or moving away from it? We are going towards that. We're going towards that, unfortunately. Pradeep Kumar Roy says terms like neural networks and deep learning are basically static input variables and statistical pattern matching, respectively. Neural networks and deep learning, static input variables and statistical pattern matching. Why do they use such complex words? Something sinister behind this naming convention? No, no. What is more complex for the ordinary person? Neural network or static input variables? I think static input variables is more complex terminology compared to the term neural networks for the ordinary person. What is more complex for the ordinary person? The term deep learning or the term statistical pattern matching? I think deep learning is simpler. That's why we use these simpler terms so that you can communicate better with the lay people. That's the majority of humanity. And neural networks actually make sense from a biological perspective. The human brain is essentially a massive, gigantic neural network, isn't it? And that's the basis of artificial intelligence, recreating the same structure, right? So there's something sinister about this. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says India has 1 crore manuscripts, but less than 1% are readable. Can AI platforms like Vidvanika finally restore our lost civilizational history? So I'm not aware of this AI platform called Vidvanika. We have 1 crore manuscripts potentially. There are that exist physically. Some of these are palm leaf manuscripts, literature written on palm leaves. Some of these are literature potentially written on birch bark or something. Fragile, perishable materials, and they won't be around forever. Eventually, they'll crumble in India's heat and humidity and all that. So, what should happen is we need to first of all digitize these. We probably have more information, data in this form than what you had in Nalanda and Takshashila put together. So we need to digitize all these manuscripts and then have AI systems transcribe everything and create multiple copies of everything, data redundancy, and then you can have AI systems and platforms or whatever that can bring this back to life and explain it to us as if it's an ancient teacher or something. So that certainly is possible. No question about that. No question. We should do that. I'm not aware of Vidvanika, but if it's that sort of initiative, I would say that's very welcome. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says Nietzsche said God is dead. In modern Western civilization, is artificial intelligence stepping in to replace God? Kind of, yeah. People use AI as a crutch. People use AI as a shoulder to cry on. People use AI as a confidant. People use AI as an advisor. People reveal their deepest, most intimate secrets to AI. So yeah, AI is becoming a replacement for God, a replacement for everything. It is indeed happening. Yes. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, personally, which area or application of AI has had the single most significant impact in your life and why? AI is good for research. Good for research, for gathering information, right? for if you're researching something, if you're writing something, you can find sources and citations easily with AI, and so on. So AI can do a lot of things, and AI should not be used in certain ways. Otherwise, it's going to corrupt your brain. Otherwise, you're going to outsource your thinking to AI. Never ever use AI for that. So I think AI is a good tool that assists in research. It's great for gathering sources and gathering information that you can then yourself synthesize and make sense of. So that way AI is obviously a useful tool. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, are vectors fundamental? Why do they combine so easily? Could there be undiscovered vector like mathematics? Scalars and scalar, SCALAR, scalars and vectors was the first topic that I read in class 11th. I remember good times. Are vectors fundamental? So vector is a quantity. It's a quantity that has direction and magnitude. So typically we think of quantities that have magnitude, temperature, 0 degrees Celsius, 10 degrees, 15, 78. It has magnitude, -7, whatever. It has magnitude. But temperature has no direction, right? It's just a magnitude. But vectors have magnitude and direction. Velocity is a vector, right? 78 kilometers per second, for example, in that direction. So it has a direction as well. That's a vector. Are they fundamental? They're constructs. They're constructs. It's a useful tool to use. Are they fundamental? You could say they are fundamental, but they are outcomes of the actual. Well, everything is an outcome of what exists in the universe. All mathematics is it encodes those regularities and patterns. So vectors are a mathematical tool that we have essentially created to help in calculations and help us make sense of the world. Could there be undiscovered vector like mathematics? I suppose. So then the question is mathematics discovered or invented? I just said that we invented vectors, right? Well, did we invent vectors or did vectors actually exist? Well, the quantities that we call vectors have existed. They've always existed. So yeah, vectors are the fundamental. Or is velocity fundamental? I think velocity is fundamental. So yeah, vectors are fundamental. Could there be undiscovered vector like mathematics? I suppose, yeah, there could be. There could be potentially, yeah. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, Brian Johnson just renamed his firm Immortals and said we won't actually die. Is radical life extension real science or billionaire delusion? I think life extension is real science. Radical life extension, maybe living 200 years, is that real science? It could become real science, step by step, gradually, iteratively. I don't think it's billionaire delusion. So it is now understood reasonably well that the process of aging is caused by the shortening of the ends of the chromosomes in human cells. And what are these ends of the chromosomes called? They're called telomeres. They're made of a substance called telomerase. So the shortening of the telomeres, every time a cell divides, the telomeres shorten very slightly. And over an entire lifetime, the telomeres shorten significantly. The shorter your telomeres, the older, the more you age. So aging is understood now to be caused by the shortening of telomeres. If you can halt the process of the shortening of telomeres, then you can stay at a certain biological age, potentially indefinitely. I don't know, maybe. And if you can actually rebuild telomeres and lengthen them, you may actually reverse your aging. Maybe it's more complex than what we imagine, but that's the direction in which research is being done. Okay. If you can cure and prevent cancers, that will, extend lifespans and so on. So I think all these avenues are being explored right now. It certainly is possible that people in the future may live longer than 100 years routinely. It's possible. I don't think it's billionaire delusion, but is that desirable? It's okay to extend your life, but will you have a good quality of life? All those questions have to be answered. So life extension is possible for sure. in the coming years, maybe 10, 20 years, maybe extended. And if that research continues, it could become 100 years. It's possible. I don't think it's entirely delusion, but much of this right now is science fiction. Okay. A. Rahul says, Brahman Turiya is noumena, world is phenomena. I don't know. Not sure about this. Not sure. Noumena, phenomena. That's a philosophical concept, right? Yeah, I'm not very clear about that right now. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, sometimes I feel if we understand how the world works, the artificial system made by the elites, we will be free from this Maya and won't have a purpose or meaning of living a long life. We will be at peace. So let's say there's an artificial system that's made by the elites, that's designed and used to control the world and control you. If you understand it one day, it will still be controlling you. You won't be free from the Maya. Right? So I don't know if understanding how the world really works will free you from all the Maya, and you will no longer have a purpose. Understanding the secrets may actually give you a purpose. Have you considered that? If you know that there's an artificial system that is being used to control you and your fellow human beings, will you be at peace? I think maybe not. Maybe this will give you a different and maybe stronger purpose. Yeah. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, if another power achieves ASI first, how does India avoid becoming a digital vassal state? Do we align or stay independent? If another, first of all, is India actually in the race? Right now, India is not in the race. Okay. The US and China are way ahead of India. Let's not delude ourselves into believing that India is in the race right now. India doesn't figure in the race. So India is not going to achieve ASI first, the way things are going. I hope it changes, but right now, the way things are going, India is not anywhere. First of all, achieve AI. Then we'll talk about ASI. Okay, we have a system called Sarvam, which is a decentish AI here. Never used it, but okay. Now, if another power, let's say the United States achieves ASI first, how does India avoid becoming a digital vassal state? Does India align or stay independent? India aligns and that's it. Once somebody achieves ASI, there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. They control everything. So that's the race. That's why the US and China are taking AI so seriously. Everybody else becomes a vassal. There's nothing you can do about that. Okay, Chill Panda says, what can climate change change the world over time? What can climate chance change the world over time? What's your question? I don't get you. What can climate chance change the world over time? Okay, so I don't know what you're asking me, but climate change is a reality. It's always been a reality. The Earth's climate has always been changing. It's never constant. And now there is a human dimension to climate change. So the world is getting warmer over time. That's what we see. And that's going to have effects on the world. It will change. Coastlines will change eventually, someday, hopefully, perhaps. No, not hopefully, but someday. And so on and so forth. Yeah. Pradeep Kumar Royce's prediction about FIFA World Cup winner, my pick, Portugal. I have not watched a single match this year. I've not watched a single match. I just watched those 2-minute highlights. From those highlights, you can't really tell what's happening and which team is good. So I don't know. Portugal, who would I like to win? See, India is not playing, so we really don't have a team to support. But I think France is a good team. They're a team of multiple superstars, not just one superstar. Argentina has one superstar. Portugal has one superstar. France has a bunch of superstars. So maybe France is a good chance. How is the Netherlands? I'm not sure. Other teams, I'm not sure. So I can't say. Maybe France, maybe Argentina again, which perhaps, I don't know, can't say. Maybe from what little I've seen, maybe France. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, can democracies survive AI? Won't politicians ban AI job automation to win votes, leaving us crushed by authoritarian rivals? Can democracy survive AI? Is democracy something that's desirable, first of all? Does democracy really serve people? That's a different question. But can democracies serve AI? Yeah, they can survive AI. Democracies can survive AI. Yeah. If you have good politicians, if you have bad politicians who are self serving, then it's not a democracy, by the way. It's a fake democracy. A democracy is supposed to be a system in which the politicians, the elected representatives, serve the people. If they are self serving, then it's not a democracy, it's a fake caricature of a democracy. A true democracy will survive AI, it will thrive under AI with the use of AI. In a fake democracy, in a caricature of democracy where politicians actually serve themselves, they will do everything they can do to win votes. That's the deal. Prateek Kumar Roy says the majority of people in the world are not very intelligent. Democracy is a trap, it feels sometimes. Maybe Socrates was right. So, democracy is the rule of the mob, isn't it? The least common denominator. It's the rule. It's ruled by the least common denominator. And most people aren't the brightest. Let's put it that way. Most people aren't the brightest. The average person is average, right? And it's the average person that decides who gets elected. So democracies are obviously a flaw. Democracy is a very badly flawed system. It never gives you excellence. Or the United States is excellent, or it used to be. It's never been a real democracy. It's an empire. It's an autocracy masquerading as a democracy. Maybe Socrates was right. Okay. Varinder Singh says, do psychedelics increase your brain connections? No, they don't increase your brain connections, but they give you weird experiences, I believe. People who have taken DMT have reported experiencing very strange phenomena internally, mentally. So maybe psychedelics reconfigure the brain, some of the brain connections. Maybe they rewire the brain internally in certain ways, potentially. Yeah. They don't increase your brain connections. They seem to rewire some of your brain connections so that you see things in different way. Maybe that's what happens if somebody takes psychedelics. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, if human study of consciousness is consciousness studying itself, would AI, an outside system, be better suited to decode it? So if humans are studying consciousness, we know that we are conscious. So it's a consciousness studying what consciousness is, or a consciousness trying to grasp what it itself is and failing thus far. Would an AI be better suited to decode it? So the AIs that we have thus far are simply prediction machines, right? The AIs that we have thus far, that we are aware of, that we know of, they don't really produce new thinking, new ideas. They don't do that, right? Has any AI been able to propose a new law of physics? Has any AI been able to propose what dark matter actually could be? None of these big ideas, none of the big problems are being potentially resolved by AI. AI is not coming up with new ideas. AI is a worker. If you want to study consciousness, you need to come up with new ideas, new ways of thinking. And is AI currently, in the shape and form it is today, is it better suited to decode consciousness? It's not. Maybe future AIs could do it, but right now, the AIs that we are aware of, that are public knowledge, can't do it. So, no. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, does traditional arms race logic, bomb versus bigger bomb, apply to ASI? Or does superintelligence instantly break military deterrence? No, once you have two nations that have reached superintelligence, the bigger superintelligence will win. So, yes, bomb versus bigger bomb will also apply to ASI. If two nations in near equal time frames develop ASI, so first of all, we don't know exactly what ASI is. It's super intelligent. It's a very rough analogy, is like having a human who has a 300 or 500 IQ, that sort of thing, right? Has AI reached that stage? Who knows? AI is don't come up aren't able to come up with completely radically new ideas right now, but they do very, very impressive work for sure. At what stage has an AI reached ASI? Have we already reached AGI? These are the questions that we can't answer right now. But maybe ASI means you just have 512 GB of RAM, or GPU. That's what ASI perhaps means. I don't know. Uh, so does superintelligence instantly break military deterrence? Not necessarily. If two nations have the same capability of AI and both are ASI systems, well, then you have a new arms race there. It doesn't instantly break military deterrence, because if you have ASI, it doesn't mean your bombs are better or your missiles go faster and longer. It means your awareness of the battle space is totally different now, and you can start improving systems very rapidly and so on. So the same traditional arms race logic does apply to ASI. Smart versus smarter system, that sort of thing. It does, yeah. Pradeep Kumar Roy says defects in humans will never end. Human brain produces new problems, edge cases every day. If AI takes control, human extinction will be the ultimate solution. If AI takes control of the world, it could perhaps operate from using, it may perhaps think it has a noble objective. It may perhaps have been tasked with solving the world's problems. And what if it decides that human beings are the world's problem? Then it could decide to end humanity. So it could happen. That's why AI should never take control. We should not allow any machine to take control of our destiny and future. If it happens, there could be a very big disaster coming up. So it should never happen. Sachin Kumar is thinking, says, since AI agents can read each other's code, does classical game theory survive, or do algorithms unlock super rationality? So can Chat GPT read, like you say, the code of Claude? It can't. It's not code that is integral to AI. It's parameters, it's the weights that actually give AI its intelligence and knowledge. And when you have closed models, they can't read each other's weights. They can't. You can infer this, you can distill it to some extent, but you can't really read a closed model's weights, which is the source of its intelligence. Right? So AI, there's no code as such. There's weights, there's the parameters, and that's closed off. You have open source models where you can download the parameters and install the system in your machine. That is accessible to any other AI system, sure. But closed source AI models can't read each other's, access each other's parameters. They can't. Right? And I'm not sure what that has to do with classical game theory. So the main thing I can say is that they can't read each other's weights if they are closed models. Sachin Kumar says, are laws of physics actual fundamental truths or just human approximations that AI will replace with math we can't comprehend? So what are the laws of physics that we are aware of? We are aware of 4 laws of physics. Which are these? Electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, and gravity. These are the 4 laws of physics, the 4 forces, the 4 interactions in physics. Okay, these are not laws of physics, these are the 4 fundamental interactions or forces. And then you have laws of physics, right, which are essentially the mathematical representations of the patterns and regularities we have observed in the universe and in the world. That's the laws of physics. Are these actual fundamental truths, or are they actually human approximations? These are human approximations. These are human approximations. They aren't the fundamental, final truths about the universe. These are human approximations. We don't really understand the proton. Simple. What's inside a proton? We're not quite sure. We know there are 3 quarks in there, but why? The proton is super, super complicated. We know it has 3 quarks, sure. Neutrons also have 3 quarks. But what's the fundamental basis of quarks? We don't know. So even the best laws, even our best understanding of physics is flawed. It's incomplete. And dark matter, dark energy will not even go there. So the laws of physics as we know them are approximations. They aren't fundamental truths. Will AI replace them with math we cannot comprehend? We will see about that. I'm not sure. Eventually, AI may become something that thinks on its own and can actually generate new ideas and theories. If that happens, and once that happens, you will find significant progress and very rapid progress happening in physics. If this happens, will it be replaced with math we can't comprehend? Potentially, it could happen. Yes. Rano Nahapana says, did Vikramaditya really cross the Akshu River? Akshu, Oxus. What is the Oxus called now? Amudarya, Sirdarya. The Chakshu River, Akshu River, Oxus River. What was the Oxus River called in Sanskrit in ancient times? And what is it called today? So, what was it called in Sanskrit? It was called Chakshu or Vakshu. Okay. Okay. And it is now called the Amudarya. So that's the deal. So it was called the Vakshu or the Chakshu historically in ancient times. And now it's called the Amudarya. Where is this Oxus River located? Let's quickly see this. Amudarya. Amudarya. Central Asia's. Yeah, of course. Here it is. If you can locate it and place it in the right context, right? Not very far from where we are in India, not very far from the subcontinent. So did Vikramaditya cross the Oxus River? I don't know. Which Vikramaditya? There have been multiple Vikramaδιtyas. And I don't know, really. Don't know. Okay. GGEZS says, are our labor arbitrage supposed oligarchs, Infosys controlling the government and selling us out to the West, given their comments on AI? Are you talking about Mr. Nilekani? Mr. Nilekani is of the opinion that India should not develop frontier models, not even try to develop frontier models. India should simply use Western models and ensure that that serves India or some stuff like that. Do I agree with what Mr. Nilekani says? I completely disagree with him. If India adopts what the direction that he is trying to preach, then India becomes a vassal state. That's all I will say about this. Enough said. Abhijit Kumar says, do we have a session tomorrow also on any topic? No. Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do. Today is Saturday. Well, it's already Sunday. That's why I was wondering. Is it Saturday or Sunday now? It's past 12 p.m. It's past midnight in India. So it's Sunday. But yeah, let's say Sunday is tomorrow. Yes, we have a session tomorrow. Yes. Prateep Kumar Roy says, your views about the Tate brothers and the matrix that they speak of, deep state assets. I don't have too much of views about the Tate brothers. So I don't really know a lot about them. They have this platform called The Real World, Hustlers University, something like that, right? And I suppose people pay a lot of money to be on the platform. You learn stuff. And they are very controversial. They have been accused of having all kinds of weird things they did in the past. So what's my opinion about them? I don't have much of an opinion about them. I don't know enough about them to have a clear opinion. The matrix they speak of, I'm not sure what matrix they speak of. Deep state assets, who knows? I don't know much about them, really. I follow one or two of them somewhere or the other on social media because they're kind of entertaining. But yeah, that's another thing. Yeah. Okay. Harshai says, off topic, your views on Ketan Agarwal case. What's your advice for innocent boys? Who's Ketan Agarwal? I am not sure who Ketan Agarwal is. Ketan Agarwal. Let me Google Ketan Agarwal. Okay, I have no idea about this, so I rather not say anything because I don't know. Yeah, don't know. Whoopsie daisy. Did I miss something? I think I missed a super chat somewhere. How do I find it now? Okay, GGS says purchase geopolitics course. The website error. It'll be fixed soon. It'll be fixed. I'm gonna make it available to as many people as possible at the earliest. All right. Okay. Harshay says, where is Harshay? Okay, I took this question. This is done. And here, GS says, what are your thoughts on no physical disc for GTA 6? Why? Okay, GTA 6 is some game, right? Grand Theft Auto. GTA 6. What are your thoughts on no physical disc for this? Why is everything subscription based now? No lifetime permanent access. Everything, even edtech, apart from Udemy, I think even that will be changed. So everything is moving towards a subscription model. They want to lock you in and keep extracting value out of you. There was a time when you could purchase software, it was yours. You got a disk, you could download it and you could use it in whatever way you wanted. Now software, it's subscription based. There was a time if you wanted to play those PlayStation games, you had to buy those discs. You never had to connect the PlayStation 2 or whatever it was to the internet. I had one of those things. I purchased the PlayStation 2 for $450 or whatever it was back in the day. And I had a few games. It wasn't me, but someone else who played one of those games more than me. But yeah, you do not have to go on the internet to play those games. And now you don't even get a physical disc, really. So even if you purchase the damn thing, it's not yours. It's terrible, this whole thing. It's terrible. Yeah. Yeah, it's this is capitalism at play. I'm not saying I love communism. Communism is even bad, even worse. But capitalism itself, you can see, it's not the best thing in the world. Yeah. Okay, Pradeep Kumar Roy says, is the atomic bomb the greatest invention in human history? Good night, everyone. It's not the greatest invention in human history. I'm sure there's lots of inventions that are way better than the atomic bomb. It's probably one of the worst inventions in human history. All right, that brings me to the end of today's live stream. Thank you very much, everybody, for all the questions. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one, which will be in the less than 24 hours. Okay. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope this was fun. It was fun for me. I enjoyed this. Thank you for the questions. Keep asking questions, keep learning, keep raising your standards. And I shall see you tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care until then. Good night for now and good day for now.